O'Reilly. Are your wiper blades chattering, skipping, or squeaking? Don't let streaks or smearing on your windshield compromise your visibility. When it's time to replace your wiper blades, stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts and see our selection. Our professional parts people will even install your new wiper blades while you wait. Stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts today. O'Reilly Auto Parts.
You ever get that feeling the walls closing in, the concrete jungle suffocating you? You crave some wide open spaces, the chance to connect with nature, maybe in a spot all your own. Well, head over to land.com. They've got ranches, forests, mountains, streams, you name it. Search by acreage. You can search by location. You can search by the kind of hunting and fishing you're dreaming of. Land.com. It is where the adventure begins. There's nothing like snook hook sets at dawn or catching a tarpon in the moonlight. Find your next fishing trip made easy on fishingbooker.com and experience the magic of the Sunshine State or any other destination on your fishing bucket list. Book a blue water adventure in search of sailfish or go snapper fishing with the kids. With over 6,000 captains and trips to choose from, planning your next one just got a whole lot easier. Download the Fishing Booker app on the Google Play or App Store, or visit them online at fishingbooker.com to book your trip today.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of The Hunting Collective. I'm Ben O'Brien, and today I'm joined by a very special, really a very badass individual. His name's Brad, and Brad was a part of a bear attack on Afognak Island. He has been willing to give us here at the Hunting Collective the exclusive story of this attack. It wasn't only just an attack, it was a mauling. He sustained some very minor but also some very serious injuries along the way of this attack. He was hunting elk with some buddies there, and just an amazing story unfolded. You'll know Afognak Island from the Meat Tree podcast, from the Meat Eater with Steve Rinella, Remy Warren, Giannis Patelis, and others. Afognak Island has become a place where bear attacks in the news are fairly frequent. I mean, if you don't know about Afognak Island, it's in the Kodiak Island archipelago in coastal Alaska. It's about 20 miles long, 40 miles wide. There's just about 39 people that live there. Who knows if that's even the right number? It's not a lot. There's no roads, there's no stores, there's just herds of Roosevelt elk and hundreds of Kodiak brown bears, which are some of the largest bears in the world. They can be up to 1,300 pounds. They're giant. And the elk there are Roosevelt elk, and they were transplanted from the Olympic Peninsula of Washington State in the late 1920s. And a lot of guys love to go hunt them, as did Brad and his 4 friends. But one ensued. It was one of the craziest stories you'll ever hear, and it's exclusive to this podcast. So please listen, enjoy, and learn from Brad and his bear attack on Afognak. Brad, what's up, man?
Not much, Ben. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Sunny San Diego.
You got it.
There's a lot to talk about, obviously, but first things first. When we get in a situation where I need it, this is the story. People are coming for the story, right? They're coming for the bear attack story,
of course.
But we're gonna make them wait a minute. We're gonna make them
suspense. I guess.
Give them a little bit of suspense.
Yeah.
I want to talk about Kodiak and Afognak Islands, and the environment there first, because you spent some time around bears prior to.
Oh yeah, been there for 2.5 years now.
So tell me about your time in Kodiak and your experience of bears, or what kind of place it is there.
Sure. Well, first and foremost, the bear population is insane there. So it's the common occurrence of seeing bears is nothing short from what I'm used to. You know, my drive to work, I see a bear like pretty much every day.
Yeah.
So
Hey, let's back that up a minute. If I drive to work,
Yeah.
I pretty much see a bear every day.
pretty much, no. So I live out in what's called the flats. There's section Kodiak off, and most people don't realize, but Kodiak's a huge island. So actually second biggest in the U.S., I think, next to the Big Island, Hawaii. But it's huge, but only like a 10% of it people actually live on.
Yeah.
Like, there's just the top right corner, and that's where people live, and then that's it. And then there's like a few outlying little like port towns type deal. But I think it's 67 miles of paved road. That's it. So that's about as far as you can drive and go.
Yeah. I've flown over it in the planes a couple of times, and you're like, well, that's, yep.
Exactly. So, and I know you're aware of this, but just for, for the people listening.
Sure.
But it's sectioned off basically to the main part of town, and then you've got the flats, and everybody out there is called flat rats, and that makes me a flat rat. So I live a little ways out in town, but you've got bears that they just get named by where they feed on the rivers down there, and there's just ample amounts of salmon in the river, going everywhere. But Sergeant's Creek is one of them where you just see people just lined up on the side of the road taking pictures and causing traffic jams and all kinds of other incidents. It's a real pain. But no, so between the Buskin Bear and Sergeant's Creek, it's like you're just seeing bears all the time. I've almost hit bears like I've hit deer back home, So it's a very common occurrence. And ironically enough, I think it was like a week, maybe a week and a half before the actual incident itself, there was a friend that was coming over to the house. And I live in a guest house next to the main house, and we were all kind of gathered together in the main house. And it was late at night, real dark out, and I was just going back over to my house to grab some food and drinks and bring back over. Well, I step out of the house, and there's horses on the property. But I come out of the house, and a lady that was over there had her pickup truck, just kind of parked in the driveway, and I didn't think anything of it. And I, ran by, and I heard some, kind of footsteps, and I just thought it was one of the horses.
Yeah.
Well, I just make it by the pickup truck, and I just see this massive bear. And it's just walking away. I'm like, shit, you got to be kidding me. And fortunately, it wasn't an attack mode or anything, startled it off. It was getting into some garbage, and I actually shot it off the property at that point. I had my concealed carry on me, and just to scare it away, just kind of like, shoo, get out of here. But, just goes to show like that. If that bear wanted me, it was only 10 yards away when I was just walking by, like pitch black. Like there would have been nothing that I could have done.
Luckily, there was some trash there.
Oh, for sure. Like that's all it was interested in. It's like, oh, food. And right along those lines too, after this whole thing has happened, and even before that, we've noticed real recently on Kodiak, the bear kind of dynamic and what they're interested in. This past year has really changed, I think, than the seasons prior. And this is just a theory. I mean, Fish and Game could probably really dial it in, but the Reds didn't run at all this year. Just absence didn't happen. The salmon runs in general just started very, very late. Even the silvers when they finally came in, and it was a great season at the end. But I think the bears are really, really hungry in the beginning, and they're still kind of playing catch up because everywhere in town, all we just see is just like bears popping up, getting into trash. Way more than I've seen before in the past, and other guys that I know that have lived there for 20 plus years saying the same thing. Like, they're
pretty really aggressive.
And fortunately, they haven't been aggressive, but just like, I don't know,
aggressively
bold,
hungry.
Bold and getting into people's trash. No, I mean, just everywhere in the city, right by dogs and other people's houses, and they don't care. And I would say that's the difference is they're city bears. It's the equivalent of a city bear versus the rural tundra type bear that you're going to see out hunting and stuff. And but they've really, really been bold lately, and it's nuts. Yeah,
and there's a lot of companies that run bear tours and things on Kodiak, so I'm sure you're well aware.
Right.
And it just is, it's the most interesting part about it is the dichotomy that exists there of you live there, you see bears every day. I see, maybe a deer every day or something like that. So the comparison of the two is eerie to me almost. It's the way that your daily experience with a bear is oh, there's one. Oh, there's one. Yeah. And there's another one. That's unreal.
Oh, it's wild. So I grew up in Maine, so black bear, it's huge up there.
Yeah.
But even growing up there, I mean, we lived out in the sticks, like small town, 600 people, and I could count on my hands the amount of times I've seen a bear.
That's what I mean.
You know what I mean? Like, and I grew up hunting
Yeah.
my entire life. So did my father, and he finally, he got one, and he's been trying for years and years and years. But you just don't see them. They're recluse,
Yeah.
just wild. But not the brown
Not
bear
like
there. That is salmon! Yay! I'm just
Trash
I'm
cans,
happy. Woo!
Main Street. We don't care. Yeah, I mean, that's black bears are in pretty much every state at this point. And other than Florida is pretty famous for having a lot of black bear incidents. I mean, now New Jersey's in the headlines around black bears. They shut the season down. But you don't. It's not something. I grew up on the East Coast too, and there were bears around. But I think I can remember seeing one as a kid while hunting. And so I'm not sure there's many places on the planet Earth where you would see a bear every day on your commute to work. Nope. It just isn't.
No, not at all.
So how, when something like that happens, you come out and you see a bear in the trash can, is that something that is talked about, or is that a daily occurrence? Is that something that, bears that close to, the dwelling, bears that close to,
Yeah, and I think most people's experiences they all come from the city.
Yeah.
And being in those type environments. And I think those bears specifically are they're more skittish. They don't want anything to do with you for whatever reason. Like, they're not trying to protect anything, even the garbage and stuff. They don't really have dominance over. I've never seen anything like that or heard any incidents. I do think it's probably a matter of time.
Yeah.
But it's definitely talked about. And of course it, scares people, especially just seeing the size. Most people don't understand or really they can't get the scale of it. All you ever see is TV and video and pictures and everything. As soon as you see a massive bear, it's a pretty big eye opener.
I can imagine so.
Yeah. Especially, the differences between the lower 48 kind of bear, where people may have seen them before, and then going to Kodiak.
Yeah.
And I would think the same thing if I ever saw, a polar bear, stepping it up in that realm too. It's the more massive the creature, the more just
coastal bears.
It's just
a different
really,
deal.
yeah, really, really it's eye opening. And funny enough, I've had that conversation with differences in grizzlies and brown bears and the coastal or inland. And yeah, they just get huge off that salmon. And, obviously where the Kodiak brown bear gets its name, but yeah, no, people definitely talk about it, but for the most part, it's always just stories of they come out and turn the lights on or make a noise and stuff like that, and the bear just runs off.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. You just don't. It changes the first time somebody gets attacked in their front yard, or somebody is taking the garbage out and gets mauled.
Oh, for sure. And it still worries me because we just see them around town. And all I keep thinking is man, that one kid waiting at the school bus stop.
Yeah.
That one time, I grew up in the same thing. It was in sticks and nobody would ever know, unless there was a bunch of other kids or something like that around. But they're so small and kind of easy targets that's what I worry about. I'm if that bear's hungry enough and finally sees that, he might be I'm going to capitalize on this. And there's, that's what's going to change everything. And
then that would be, oh gosh, that'd be terrible. But yeah, I mean, it's just, there's a different dynamic for cohabitation when you are cohabitating with a charismatic megafauna, giant fucking predator that could swipe you like that. I mean, it just is, cohabitation with ungulates. You're helping manage that population. The relationship's a little bit easier to manage than when that's happening. But I have not. I know we have a mutual friend, Cole Kramer. I've talked to him a lot and hunted on Kodiak with him a couple of years ago. It was in December, so we didn't see any bears.
Yep.
Thank God. But just talking with him about that, I mean, he's a bear guide. And some of the stories that he will tell you, he's been on this podcast, and if you go back and listen to, I think it's episode 18 with Cole, you'll hear some of these stories. But bears are killing machines.
Yeah, and they're just born and bred.
They're meat processors with 4 legs. They're just
Oh yeah,
and that's all they're thinking about. So, the fact that you're living in this place, that you somehow, you have to. There's no way that you're not getting used to habituated with bears. You are. You see them every day. Your lens with which you see a bear is different than mine.
Oh yeah, and I think well, one, the whole experience is definitely eye-opening, and I don't think I ever really took it for granted. It definitely opened my eyes, but finally being, mauled and attacked really opened my eyes to me being a very big solo hunter. And,
just me and my bear spray.
Not even that. I was always having my gun on me, and I don't know. It's definitely opened my eyes and changed my thought process on doing that from now on. But ironically, myself and the guy who ended up, shooting the bear, both of us prior to the attack had gotten our deer, and bagged our first deer on the road system solo, completely by ourselves. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Mine was on opening day.
Yeah.
Got mine opening day, and Kodiak's like a jungle in the spring, summertime. Like before that, in opening day is August 1st there, and it's so the grass there and all the growth is over my head. Like there would be no question. Me being like quiet, doing the same thing, not having anybody else. Like I'm not making any noise. That it could have just as easily happened the same way, sneaking up on a bear or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's kind of makes you think again. I'm like, okay, I thought I had this kind of dialed in. Like, nope, not so much.
Yeah, I mean, there is a general helplessness when it comes to proximity to bears. I mean, you can be prepared as you'd like. Like you said, you can have a sidearm, you can have a rifle, you can have bear spray, and we'll get into your experience here in a minute. But not most times, but there are plenty of times where none of that matters. No matter how prepared you are, you're still helpless.
Yep.
You're still helpless.
Yeah.
Because this is a giant killing machine.
For sure. When you're out there, it's you're not really in the food chain, but it doesn't make you the top of the food chain either.
Yeah.
Those things can do whatever they want, and I'm sure we get, machines that make us a little more capable than they are. But no, it's an extremely massive and powerful animal that's, built to do a lot of damage.
Big ball of hair and muscle.
We're
and
a bunch of fucking pussies.
Yes,
we really are.
Compared to a bear, yeah. I mean, like I said, I've been in a lot of wilderness situations. We were talking before we hit record. I'm just lucky enough to have I've had experience where I've seen bears, but just lucky enough never to really have had to make any real decisions around. My proximity to a bear. But, I live in Montana. There's lots of people that go hunting in Montana and Wyoming and all over Canada and on Kodiak every year that put themselves in a situation where the odds are low. They're very low, but there are odds that say you're going to run into a grizzly bear and you're going to have to make a decision. And that's, doing that willingly is taking on an immense risk.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
For sure. Yeah,
for sure. I know that.
Look, you're talking to, bro.
No, I know. I'm humbled by the experience for sure, and I got no ill will towards bears at all. Like I was just looking forward to getting back on the horse, and unfortunately, I'm missing all the seasons now. But I don't know.
Yeah,
it doesn't. It doesn't faze me. I think a lot of other people talk about it or think that you'll have some sort of hate towards bears now. Like, oh, kill all bears. They're all terrible things. It's like, no, not at all.
Yeah,
not at all.
Yeah. So you grew up hunting, you said, with your dad in Maine.
Oh, for sure.
Plenty of bears in Maine.
Yep. Yeah, plenty of bears.
Yeah. What was your, how did you come up? How did you grow up hunting? How did you get introduced to it? Prior to living on Kodiak, what was your experience?
Sure. So, lived out in the sticks, log cabin my father built, lived in the same house, our entire lives. And, prior to me, going off to college, that's just all we did every fall. And the hunting seasons there are very, very different and much more stringent, I guess, than a lot of other states, as I came to find out. But you only get one deer a season. That's it. White-tailed deer, and boom, you're done. I think there might be some, you might be able to get a second one with some of the extended seasons there. But it makes you a hard hunter growing up in Maine and try to hunt. And I'm sure, some of the other states are similar, but there is no warm hunting there.
Yes.
The coldest I've ever been in my life is without a doubt been times where I was hunting in Maine and just sitting in a tree stand for 5 hours and like -20 and just freezing my fucking ass off.
There's no way to get warm. You can't get warm.
No, your blood's not moving. You're just sitting there, and that was the true test. And the funny thing is those are some of the best times I ever had with my pops, growing up, was just sitting in the tree stand, like waiting, or, and eventually we'd, split up and take a couple different fields of fire there. And, just waiting for our deer. And it was a big deal. And there's just no question. It's like the more time that you spent out, the more chance you were going to, see something or run into something. And I never grew up really doing stalking hunting.
Yeah.
Because the Maine woods, it's almost impossible.
Yes.
At least in the areas that we were in. There's probably some more open woods in different areas, but no, it's so thick there.
Yeah.
In the time of season, everything just snaps. It's crunchy. Like you can't. Like it's almost impossible to actually like stalk hunt deer there. The big thing there is just like sitting in a tree stand, doing your scouting and stuff in the preseason, and finding out where they're going to be, and then just waiting and setting up your doe piss or whatever, and accounting for the wind, and have a couple different sites. And father taught me everything for sure. But I started going with him well before I was able to hunt myself, and 10 years old is the legal hunting age there. And finally, when I was 10, and this is one of my favorite stories, actually, but we had this place called the Pease Farm, and it was that was just a family that owned it, like back in the day. It's not there anymore, but huge tree stand that my grandfather, and his friends built up on this huge back lot. God, I don't even know how many years ago. And my father and he wanted to take me there. He's like, okay, it's a really big open spot, and we're going to go out. And 10 years old, and not a stranger to the cold, but not really adept at it either.
Yeah.
And finally go out, and we're sitting there, and of course, like I get cold within however, an hour or 2 hours, because of course we're there before the sun rises, and it's like,
There's
okay.
No 10-year-old has ever hunted and not said, I'm cold, Dad.
Yeah,
That's
it's inevitable.
Yep.
And so he's like, okay, it's like, well, do you remember your way back to the truck? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, okay, well, just go back to the truck and turn the heater on, and warm yourself up, and then if you're ready, like, come on back out. And so I go to the truck, and I'm just sitting there, and the other funny part was I was too nervous to turn the truck on because of the noise, and I was like, I didn't want to do it, so I just thought I could just turn the truck on and like the heat would come out, but of course that's just air blowing. So I didn't actually really get warm, just the walk made me get warm, I think. But I was sitting in the truck for a little while, and my pops comes back, opens the truck, he's like, Zach, come out. And he's like, there's a deer. And he's like, oh, okay. So I get my rifle, and we go out, and we're kind of stalking at this point. He remembered seeing the duck, and it was a buck, and it was just a young buck. And finally he sees it kind of down this path, and we get up on it, and I can't see it, and he's like, it's right here. And I'm kind of like looking, and I'm like, oh, I see it, but I'm trying to see it through the scope, and it's on full power, and I just can't get on it. I'm like, I don't see it. And he's like, it's right there. And he's kind of cracking up laughing at the same time. And fortunately, we just had the wind just right, and the buck's like laying down. I'm like, very, very fortunate. I mean, I finally see it. I'm like, oh yeah, I see it. And then, I get eyes on and take my shot, and it was laying down, didn't get up. It was done. And I was just so excited, and go over and get my first deer kill. But it always just cracked me up. I'm like, it is just the worst deer kill that you could possibly imagine. Didn't do any work whatsoever. Like, I tapped out.
You had to get out of the truck.
Yeah.
You could have fallen over. You were safe.
It was just about on par as what we call heater hunting up there, where people are just driving on the trucks. I'm sure you're aware.
Yes.
Just scouting glass in the fields. Like, wonder if anything is in the field after while I'm eating this donut. My father hated that. He's like, no, those guys don't pay for it. You got to pay the man to get the deer. So.
No, one time I was in Saskatchewan hunting. They were like, here, where? Something called what's the thing called? Heater bodysuit. They were like, put this on. It was like -20, like you're talking about. Yeah. And I was like, okay, well, what is it? It's like kind of like a sleeping bag. It's got heaters inside of it. Uh-huh. And so if you sit there, you're totally comfortable. So I get up in this tree stand, put on this little sleeping bag, and turn it on, and I'm asleep in 5 minutes. Of course I'm asleep in 5 minutes. I'm in a heated sleeping bag. What? And I slept for like 3 hours. I'm like, I'm all sweaty now. Jeez. I had to get out of the tree, but yes, I grew up much the same way. And so, and the first deer that I ever killed, first deer I ever shot at, in fact, I just skinned her. I remember my dad put shooting sticks on the ground. I put a rifle down. He's like, she's right there. She's 50 yards away. I'm like, I don't got it, man.
Yeah,
I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
I think I see the sky, but I'm not sure. And
That's
eventually
awesome.
popped a shot and skinned her right shoulder. But I wish I had one laying down. That'd be great.
Yeah, exactly. Like it was easy killing there.
But it was simpler. Those times are simpler.
Yeah.
Like that. You weren't worried about how big its antlers were, or
No, it was a little spike one, Yeah, it didn't mean anything then.
you were just
meat on the table.
Yeah, meat on the table.
And first deer kill. So
Yeah, first deer kill is the simplest form of hunting because it's just there's a deer, and everything that goes into the actual killing of the deer is more important than the deer at that point.
yeah.
Like getting your crosshairs on it.
yeah, exactly. Heck, I think the third one I got was a doe.
Yeah.
It was the first time I got my doe because you got to get a permit to get does up there, and I got it. But
You guys do a lot of venison eating growing up?
oh yeah, for sure.
I'm always interested to ask like how it was cooked up because there's always this like my dad cooked just fried everything.
Yeah, no, I totally hear you, and it's funny because I've played around with like all kinds of different stuff, and I really get into the cooking thing now, especially since all I do is eat game now. I don't even go to the grocery store up in Kodiak, not for meat anyway. Like protein is halibut, salmon, elk, goat, deer. That's the freezer. Fill it up and just change it up every day. But no, I grew up with a lot of venison, moose on a few occasions, caribou. My father went up to Canada and got some caribou at one point in time. What else? We did have the black bear when he got a black bear that one time, and contrary to belief, it's not that great eating, but you can eat black bear. It's like it's reasonable. And but his way was just straight up. It's like pan seared with butter, salt, and pepper, and it's like that's it.
That was like who put that cookbook out? Because it's not bad. I mean, this last Thanksgiving, my dad fried up some tenderloin. I'm like, this tastes like my childhood, and it's good. It's good. It's not good for you, but good. There must have been just a cookbook where somebody wrote like, this is like 3-page cookbook, and the first page said butter, the second page said salt, and the last page said pepper, and it was it. You're like, and scene. And it was like that's what my dad did. So I was wondering, just being a couple of like generally East Coast kids, that's what.
Oh, that's definitely
what it was.
And I found my own ways of what I prefer, and I don't mind it that way at all. But it always did crack me up. It's like, no, that's all I want. And I'm like, well, it's kind of no wonder my mom, never really liked eating venison. She really didn't. She never liked it. She didn't like the gamey flavor. And I was like, well, that's because Pops never prepared it any better way, like to kind of change your flavorings.
What if I put a different kind of butter?
Yeah, get some fancy spices or some balsamic on it, or marinate it. Have you ever tried marinating?
Brine it?
Yeah, something.
Yeah, I mean it's funny that generational change. I mean, it really is. It's something that I've experienced with my dad. I love my dad to death, and there was just a different way, man.
Yep.
Just a different way to treat the hunting and the meat, which I feel like the hunting part's almost more simple. It's a simpler effort than some of the things we do today, but surely the meat still had reverence, but it just didn't have the same. There wasn't, there's no fine point on how to on how to prepare it. It was
for sure.
What do you got? You want a stew, or I'll fry it up? That's it. That's all we got.
Yeah, there wasn't any other differences or no other way. And I think part of that was because my mom didn't eat it, so he didn't really make it any other way. He's like, I'm going to eat it the way I like it. So that was it. But no, my pops are, they're pretty poor growing up, especially when they were kids. So the deer was just all about, just getting food and meat in the freezer, feeding the kids. Like that's how it was, even for my papa when he would go and get the deer. And he was all about eating like whatever extra parts and organs and everything else. Loved the heart. Heart was his favorite.
Yeah.
I still love the heart myself, and the liver as well. And even with the deer that I just killed, on opening season in Kodiak, like that was the first thing I did, is like all those organ meats and everything, and just like I stewed them up, and now they're they're frozen. I was waiting for to get a little colder because it was warm for Kodiak. It was like 50, 60 degrees.
Whoa, slow down, buddy.
Real warm, summertime there.
Take your shirt off, get some sun.
Yep, exactly. So in my mind, I'm just thinking, okay, too warm. Nope, got to wait for the nice, cold, deep heart of winter and break that stuff out. And it's delicious.
I think transporting back to Kodiak across the world, basically, across the country for sure.
Yeah. Yep. About as far as you can go.
Every time I've spent time in a coastal Alaskan environment of any, Prince of Wales comes to mind, Kodiak comes to mind, of course, Afognak comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
I always come away thinking this is a rich place. Like, this is game rich, wildlife rich. I mean, Prince of Wales is just jaw dropping with what you see and experience there from a wildlife perspective, but so is Kodiak. But the second thing I think is what a harsh environment this is. And that's, I would say the starkness of that relationship in most of the coastal Alaska is what draws me to it. I'm sure what draws you to it. I mean, you can have just amazing, when we went to Kodiak with Cole, I mean, it was bald eagles and black-tailed deer and silver foxes, and I mean, it just it's a rich place. But then the river froze and we were struggling to get home. So it turned a little harsh.
Yeah.
Has that been your experience, kind of going through the seasons on Kodiak?
Yeah. There's a lot of similarities to Maine. That's kind of what drove me there in the first place. But Kodiak doesn't really have that full 4-season kind of effect. It's more of winter and then summer, sort of. The shoulder seasons are just kind of mixed in. In the summer there isn't really warm. It's just those long days, because being close to the Arctic Circle and up north, the poles, you get those really, really long daylight hours, and then the really, really long, dark hours, I guess, lack of daylight hours. And the harshness is definitely like the driving point in me being there and really testing the limits. And it's even in Maine, I never really grew up with the harsh rains that you get there. I say the rain is like almost the worst. And I've never been to Washington, Seattle, like that kind of climate where you just hear about it raining all the time. But I swear to God, it'll get below 32 degrees in Kodiak and it'll still be raining somehow. Yeah. And it's the harshest thing that you ever have to deal with, is especially like out hunting or doing anything in the woods, is being able to get through that, because it's just like, how is this even possible? And you can't stay dry. It's almost impossible. I've tried so many different types of clothing and gear, and that's what I really enjoy doing anyway. And man, is it wild being out there. And then you just get hit with these, maritime winds, and it's that really salty air, and it just corrodes and crushes everything. And they don't even salt the roads, but your vehicle's got like a ticking time bomb, that salty air is going to, do its own damage. But it's a very, very unique place. And the same that you see with the snowpack there, do a lot of snow work and travel. And that maritime snowpack is just, you might have like a good day of powder when it's like initial, and then it just turns to ice. Just a solid crust of ice. And guys get to experience that even if they don't go out and hunt real quick, as you're familiar with, and flying in and out of Kodiak. Because it's its own beast, and you're going to expect, if you're there, you will get a delayed flight or a canceled flight. And bless the pilots that live on Kodiak. God, these are insane human beings. These best people, they're the most skilled, but also I've never met one that wasn't just, I'm say 50% crazy. Got it. A few of them I met, I won't name names, but one time they landed us in the lagoon, drop us off on the beachhead to go hike up after black-tailed deer. And we landed and kind of taxied up to the beach there. And before we could even get our packs or anything out of the plane, our pilot was running up a hill with a pistol with like a 10 mil, chasing a blacktail around on the beach. Of course he was.
And he was like, "Hey, hold the line, hold the plane here. I'll be back."
Yep.
He was running up the hill. Like, that's about par for this course.
Yep. That sounds about right.
Folks are, some of the screws are a little bit loose.
Oh yeah. No, and that's exactly how you'll just see it happen like later on in the season. A lot of people who really enjoy the hunting and kind of that whole experience, going out and trying to find the deer, will go out and just brave it and get through just the shit terrain that it involves. And the terrain is hands down the worst part. You have the terrain and the weather, and really only in Kodiak can you find such extremes to have the salt water right there.
Oh yeah,
coastline, and then it just explodes up into these extremely, extremely steep alpine climates.
Yeah.
And I spent a lot.
Below the alpine climates are like hummocks.
Yeah.
That you can barely walk on when it gets icy.
And as we talked about earlier, my opening day hunt, and the vegetation there is just like jungle. Like, there's certain parts, if you're not going to the right place, like, it's impassable. It really is, especially getting the steep terrain, and you can't even, your body will not push any further, like through the salmon berries, glorified thorn bushes, up there that just like tear you up, and getting through that's just insane. But the other ironic part there that most people aren't aware of is that, unlike Colorado, I spent a lot of time there. The alpine there is usually like 11,000 feet, give or take, and in Kodiak it's 1,100 feet.
Yeah,
and that can be a blessing and a curse. Like, it's a good thing. It's like, obviously you're not fighting altitude or anything like that high up. It doesn't affect you. However, it's just shows you that extreme weather change that just happens in such a short amount of time, where you're just going from sea level to 1,100 feet, and you're just going to be in it, like ridiculously high winds, like getting blown over.
Yeah, I mean, in general, that's not that far up. I mean, like,
no, not at all.
I've you can do 2,000 feet in some place in New Zealand, other places that's not really not really that harsh.
Yeah,
but in Kodiak, it's different.
It's insane. And another funny story here. The day that I showed up in Kodiak, I kind of went right in it, got with, some friends that already knew they were there, and wanted to go out and spend some time overnight in the field. And it was right around hunting time. Again, hunting season. I got out there in like late July, and hunting season opened on August 1st. And I was really, really motivated. I'm like, okay, I don't know this area at all. I was talking to some guys like, okay, where do I go? So they're kind of pointing me in this direction. Like, hey, go this route. And I'd never experienced any type of jungle shit show as I did in Kodiak. And swear to God, I was going out the night before. I was like, okay, I'm going to go out, bivvy out overnight, and hunt the following morning. Break at dawn, like be up, ready to go. I had a good place in mind, took at my maps and everything. And of course, I wasn't aware of bears at this time really either. I just knew they were there. And went out, and I thought it was a prank. I thought the guys were just like, oh, they're pulling my chain, they're having one over on me, and I was just pissed the entire time. I'm like, how do you get through this?
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's no way they were sending me. There's no way I can get all the way up there in this shit. Like, it was just horrible.
Yeah, they call it the gar hole. Go that way.
I'm like, you gotta
go that way.
You're so full of shit. And they actually really meant it, but there was just like, I really got full appreciation of deer paths there. And understanding it's like, okay, there's definitely a level of suck that you're gonna have to put yourself through. But I was still of the false presumption that I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go through and find a place that just like opens up and I can walk at like a ridge line or something. And it's like, it never did. They're like, no, this deer path, like if you step one step sideways, like you're off it and you'll never find it again. And it's just one of those brutal quick learning experiences.
Yes, and I think maybe the Kodiak Island Tourism Board might not like this podcast.
Yeah,
it's true, man. If there's companies like Sitka Gear and other companies that really rely on folks like Cole and others that live and hunt in that environment to test the gear, because again, it is one of the harshest environments that you'll come across.
Unquestionable.
Anywhere in the world, I feel. And so I think that's a good setup to get into what happened to you.
O'Reilly Auto Parts are in the business of keeping your car on the road. O'Reilly Auto Parts offer friendly, helpful service and the parts knowledge you need for all your maintenance and repairs. If you're confused about what part you need, like what wipers are going to be the best, what replacement headlights are going to be the best, go into O'Reilly and talk to the people that work there, because they're great and they're super friendly, and they'll get you squared away where you walk out knowing you got the right thing. They've got thousands of parts and accessories in stock, either in-store or online, so you never have to worry if you're in a jam. Do you need your windshield wipers replaced? You need a brake light fixed? You need some quick service? They'll help you find the right part or point you to the nearest local repair shop for help. The professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts are your one-stop shop for all things auto do-it-yourself. and you can find what you need in-store or online. Stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts today or visit us at O'ReillyAuto.com/meateater. That's O'ReillyAuto.com/meateater. You ever get that feeling you're stuck inside staring at screens and a primal urge kicks in? You crave wide open spaces, fresh air, the chance to connect with the land? Well, maybe it's time to find your own piece of the wild, but searching for property can be a maze. That's where Land.com comes in. They got millions of listings across the country, from mountain ranches to hidden fishing holes. Their search tools are like a seasoned guide helping you narrow down what you want. Land.com isn't just about buying and selling. It's about finding a place to hunt, fish, explore, or simply sit by a campfire and listen to the crickets. So head over to Land.com today to turn one day into today, because trust me, there's nothing quite like the feeling of standing on your own piece of earth. There's nothing like snook hook sets at dawn or catching a tarpon in the moonlight. Find your next fishing trip made easy on fishingbooker.com and experience the magic of the Sunshine State or any other destination on your fishing bucket list. Book a blue water adventure in search of sailfish or go snapper fishing with the kids. With over 6,000 captains and trips to choose from, planning your next one just got a whole lot easier. Download the Fishing Booker app on the Google Play or App Store, or visit them online at fishingbooker.com to book your trip today.
And we also have to get into what, Afognak Island. I think Afognak Island, for a lot of folks listening to this, and even for those who haven't heard the Meat Tree podcast, which is Steve Ranella, Remy Warren, and a bunch of camera guys. They're filming the Meat Eater podcast, or doing a Meat Eater podcast, filming for the Meat Eater TV show on Afognak.
Yep.
I think this would have been last year. Mm-hmm. And they were charged by a big old bear.
Yep.
And an interesting story ensued. Luckily there, no one was injured at all, other than some mental hurdles to get over after the fact. But that's where I first heard about Afognak. And I think that's probably where a lot of people first heard about Afognak, because Kodiak is a familiar name to those in the hunting industry and the fishing industry, and even just regular folks at large. But Afognak is just a different place.
Oh, for sure. So for the people unaware, so everything is part of Kodiak, but it has so many outlying islands, and Afognak is kind of the northern big island just detached from Kodiak proper. There's a bunch of other islands up there. Raspberry is a really well-known one for its elk, and likewise with Afognak, and there's also Marmot and Spruce and all these other ones. But we were out on Afognak specifically for the elk hunting, really, really well-known for its elk population out there. And these elk are incredible. First of all, we had done a hunt, me and some of the other guys, the prior year, and just capitalized, and it was awesome. Had a great time, and these elk are just massive. They're not like the Colorado or Wyoming type elk where you have the massive racks, but they're just huge, barrel chested, just massive.
One of the biggest body elk
just
that you'll ever hunt. Yep.
And we had a fantastic time, and I got to go with another guy the same year prior to that, and he drew. So he had a draw, and he actually did his on Raspberry and did one there. So I've had a couple good elk hunts there, and we wanted to repeat this year. So it just puts a lot of good meat in the freezer for everybody.
And I think that answers the question of, after I heard Remy and Steve's story, the question becomes, why Afognak, knowing, the inherent danger of the environment. I mean, it is harsh environment, especially the times that you were there and when those guys are over there. So, I mean, it's rain, it's suck, it's hard to move around. It takes, we only have to go a mile that direction. Well, that's going to take us 4 hours. So we'll get into, let you describe a little bit of your experiences there. But, the question of why becomes, it's close to where you live. It's a plane ride away, and there's giant elk there that can give you a year's worth of meat. That's probably 400 pounds of meat.
Yeah,
Fish.
easily. You split it up, and it's incredible. And the boys and I decided to go for an elk hunt, and we took a boat over actually, and got to our kind of hunting spot where we did.
How
last
long of a
year.
boat ride is that?
I'd say like an hour and a half.
That's not long.
No, it's not. It's not bad at all. Not from the main like Dog Harbor area in Kodiak, depending where you launch from, but that's probably where most people launch from, anyways. Dog Harbor. And it just kind of depends on, of course, the sea state and the tides, because there's some passes that you can take to get there that you can get through. Otherwise, you got to go all the way around. That'll take a lot longer. But I think about an hour and a half is what it was.
And as a resident, is it pretty easy to grab a tag to go over there? Or?
Yeah, no. The registration hunt opens all on the kind of, for lack of a better term, I guess, quota on how the draw hunts go. So the elk is really, really highly regulated, and it was, 2 seasons prior to this one where none of us actually got to go. We were trying to make it work and get everybody organized, and they shut it down. So the way it works is the draw hunts all happen, and then I guess some years they might not even open it, but they'll open it on the same date. I don't remember what it was this year. I think it's November 23rd. Or something like that. That sounds about right, maybe. Or no, October. It would be October 23rd. Yeah, it had to be. So October 23rd, I think, is when it opens for the public, and you just go pick up your tag. It's free, and every day you get a call in, find out if it's still open, and then as soon as you do get one, you're required to call it in, I think, within 48 hours, really the same day is optimally what you want to do, just to let them know what the population is, and then whatever quota they set, Fish and Game does, then it's like closed down. And unlike most other hunts, you have like 5 days. It's like, okay, 5 days, call in. But it's like the elk is very, very strict, and because it's all herds there, and I don't even know where I was going with that, but October 23rd, and we kind of switched out with some other guys on this hunt and sent some other guys over there first, and then we swapped out with them, and they didn't have any luck whatsoever. And as you well know, and I know Steve has some good experience over there. I've seen some of the shows and podcasts as well, but the weather is just as crazy over there, even probably more so, I think, because there is no roads, no really well taken paths or trails. Like if you're going to find something, your goal is to kind of get up to ridgeline and then hopefully you can see. But if the cloud cover is low enough, you're not gonna be able to see anything. Yeah, like you just can't get anywhere. And obviously, come to find out, it's like the bear population there is well aware of elk and the people there, and they're not city bears. They're very well versed in being the primal creature over there.
Did you, like, when going into this particular hunt? I mean, you've hunted it before, obviously, and going into this hunt, what's your mindset? This would be a lot of questions in one, but had you had any bear experiences on Afognak prior, and going into this hunt, what was your preparation as far as communication with the mainland, and medical supplies and protection from bears? I mean, I know that's informed by just your general knowledge of wilderness and wilderness medicine and what you've done in the past, but that's also informed by what you've seen over there. When you've been there.
And so me and the boys, it's always standard for us. Every time we're going out, we're bringing a sat phone. We always have a sat phone with us, and at least one guy's had that. We actually had multiple DeLorme inReaches with us.
Yeah, those are fantastic.
Funny enough, I've got a good story on that when we get to it, in comparison, I guess. But and then guys have GPSs and cell phones as well that we use for GPSs. All of us pretty much use the Gaia app on our cell phones. It's great, but no, those are kind of our primary electronic devices that we'll use. And then we always have a first aid kit that everybody has pretty much standard with them, as well as tourniquets. And then every guy's got one of those. And then everybody's carrying with them. Some guys will have a little bit more or less, depending. But no, everybody's got one of those. The DeLorme inReaches, I think we had at least 2. And then at least like a plethora of rifles, you know, and pistols combos thereof. So I think we pretty much covered our bases. And to be honest, like when this all went down, I still think it went down textbook. Like couldn't have went any better under the circumstances. And never had any bear experiences over there before. And honestly, before that, had never even seen.
I was going to say
bear.
that was my question. You've never seen a bear?
Yeah, I was kind of surprised, even us. So the year prior to when we did the elk hunt, we kind of came up with this system. We did it all in one go and got the elk, skun them, brought all the meat away from the carcasses, and then built kind of a new site with a fire at it. And our theory is just, you know, having the fire hopefully keep the bear away, or at least kind of deter him for a little while. And then we just kind of did this shuffling short movements. We just go a few hundred yards, make another fire, bring the meat over there, and then just cart back and forth, and then just basically go fire to fire to fire to fire until we got back to the boats on the beach. And system really, really worked good. Never saw any bear. The only thing we saw at that point was foxes. The foxes obviously really, he's like, ooh, meat, you know.
They
like,
seem to always come around.
Oh, for sure.
On these islands.
Oh, for sure. We'd done a buffalo hunt. I think first year I was there, down towards the south end of the island. And that was the first thing that I saw pop up. As soon as a buffalo went down, like that gray fox came like right up to me, didn't care at all. He was just like, hey, what's up? And it was like just nose in the air, like looking. He's like, oh, I smell meat. And he was ready to go. But it never really came up before. But that's another thing I think with the wildlife in Kodiak is there's no real predators.
Yeah.
I think like other places, the bear, as much as I know that they can take down like deer, elk, and buffalo, it's not really a normal occurrence. They rely on, you know, berries and twigs if they're inland, or if that's what they're going for, and then mainly the salmon, of course, and that's always their main food consumption. So I think they'll take carcasses and stuff like that when it's there and ready, and especially the more hungry they are. But I don't know. I think just probably a waste of energy for them, so they don't actually try taking them down. More scavengers. But yeah, no predators there. But anyway, back to the Afognak, and
I would say like as a you know, to make your point a little bit, you go to Kodiak Island and look at how many black-tailed deer there are. There's no way that predation is that strong. If you look across, the predation numbers can't be that high because there are deer everywhere. Well, I have to go on a tangent on this one now, but specifically with the deer, this year was great. Phenomenal, fantastic deer everywhere. The deer look really, really healthy, a lot of fat on them. Yeah. Both mine and the other guys that I work with killed like really, really good, healthy deer, which is really great to see because the year prior was horrendous. Yeah. Almost nobody got deer, very, very scarce. And the reasoning for that, in my hypothesis and other guys that I've talked to, is all because of an early freeze. Yeah, winter kill. And it just killed off all of the salmon berries. There was no salmon berries like on island at all. There was no season because a lot of people go out and harvest and pick them and, you know, make stuff with them, pies and juices and whatever else. And completely killed them off, and therefore I think the deer population really hurt. Not probably just because of the salmon berries, but other things that frost could have killed as well. Just hurt the population so much, but the deer just thrive there. And from what I've been told, is like the entire population of deer on Kodiak started with like 7 deer on a separate island, on Long Island, just off the coast there, and I think some down in the south end as well. And they just dropped them off, and the deer from Long Island, you know, they swam over, and the ones at the south end, like they all just like populated, just like blew up. Yeah, completely just thrived there. Hardy creatures. Yeah, with the harsh conditions, but of course with no predators. That's what takes them down. It's the harsh conditions and the weather, and inevitably that's so. But it's not like they're dealing with coyotes and wolves and other predators to take them down. Yeah, I mean with generally low predation numbers, and winter kill being winter kill and predation being and habitat loss kind of being the three things that normally will drive population numbers down. There's not a whole lot of any of those things other than winter kill going on. No, not at all. But that's, I could tell you just scratch the surface. Yeah, I mean the one time that I hunted black-tailed deer in Kodiak. I mean, you could look across the flats, look across the hummock flats, and it would be 200 deer in one. I mean, I have photos of 200 deer standing in one flat.
Jeez.
Over there.
That's wild.
I'm sworn to secrecy. Can't tell you where.
That's quite all right. That's quite all right. I get it. I totally get that.
But that's that's my experience on one small part of the island. But it for sure is in that harsh environment to see those animals thrive like that. That's was always amazing to me.
Yeah. No, they're, like you said, hardy animals.
Back to Afognak.
Yeah, another tangent there.
All good tangents.
Yeah.
That's what podcasts are about. They're all about tangents. So you had quite the system for getting your meat out, and never had any bear experiences to this point, but still very prepared. I mean, you guys are all carrying sidearms, correct?
Not everybody. Some guys had sidearms, and some guys had rifles, and then some guys didn't have anything at the point. Just kind of like, because of the situation when we did go for the elk, things had kind of changed over the course of time. At first, everybody had a rifle on them.
Yeah.
But our goal had changed. Like, okay, we're only getting one elk, and that was really the deal. It's like, okay, we're only getting one elk this time. It's like, just bring it out. Because kind of setting up for that, the guys prior hadn't seen anything. The conditions were just horrible.
Yeah.
They were just god awful. Like, it was really, really high winds, heavy rains, cold. And we just wanted to focus on getting on one.
Normal conditions.
Right, yeah, normal conditions there. And even the cloud cover was low a lot of the times, and of course affected visibility. So first we were gung-ho, and I think we were there for 2 days and hadn't seen anything. We didn't even see any deer. Like, we're just talking about the deer population. Didn't see any deer, didn't see any elk, didn't see any bear, didn't see anything. No foxes. Like, I didn't see anything living practically on that island.
Not a ptarmigan.
And it's like, you got to be kidding me. It's like nothing. Yeah. And we're like, okay, that was a little disheartening. And the other guys were the same way. And like, okay, well, it's a relatively big island when you're on foot and having to work. Yeah. Like you've mentioned before, it's like it takes you hours to go anywhere. So you got to kind of set yourself up, and not knowing where the actual like population of elk is like can really hurt you.
Yeah. Did you guys bring any like bear fencing, or when you camped every night, or did you just?
Nope. Just camping. Yep. Just asses out and hope nothing bad happens. Talk about that a lot because we spent a lot of days out in the field, like sleeping overnight, and spent a lot of nights out in the field in a bivvy. And just this, small, like, rainproof sack, and just call it a bear burrito, because it's going to be a bad day if that bear decides that you smell really good and decides to take you.
He's going to rip that burrito open, yep.
Yep, exactly. And, nope, that's all we had is just our shelters, and we were down more towards the coast, and because of the numbers, we've never really had issues before. It's as soon as you have the meat and all that, I think that's when it changes everything.
They're willing to inch a little bit further in because of the reward, rather than how many guys you have in your hunting
Five, including myself.
Yeah, so I mean, with five people, that's a good deterrent for a bear. But when there's the encouragement to come and check that meat out, it's probably a little bit more.
I think I don't know. People have different theories and their own stories on. I think fire always helps too. So it's like when you have a base camp, having that fire, it's kind of like, okay, I don't know. If you're cooking something, that's going to change stuff. But as soon as you have a fire and the smoke, I would think that, the bears don't really like that. But then again, maybe they do. There's some theories on the gunshots in Kodiak being like dinner bells.
Dinner bells.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
You hear that all the time. And it's like, okay, that's the time that you have to be most aware, like bear aware, as they say, because it's like as soon as that happens, like you're just waiting.
Yeah. Did you guys ever consider bear spray as something you would do? Would you do?
Yeah, and I know a lot of guys use it. I'm not a huge proponent of it. I still prefer a sidearm if I'm gonna carry something and not carry a full rifle. Otherwise, I always try to carry a full rifle with me. I don't know. The bear spray supposedly works, but as we talked about with the guy that was just got mauled in Montana, hit twice by that sow, and she obviously ran straight through the bear spray. And I've heard other accounts of that, and I think with the bears that are there, if they want what you have, they're going to get it. It's only for, I think, that kind of bear that's kind of curious that makes you feel more uneasy. Like, in all honesty, like with a bunch of guys around, like, you're probably going to scare the bear off. The bear's probably not going to like have any interest and eventually go away. He might get close and that might scare you, but like you'll probably pull out the bear spray, I think, in fear. And that's why I think a lot of times, like, you hear about the false charges and people shooting bear, and it does kind of suck. It's like, yeah, of course you're going to protect yourself and others, but when a bear is just kind of like, hey, you're in my area, and just kind of like,
the bluff charge that's a confusing.
It's hard
thing.
And I know other hunters have had those experiences plenty of times before, including Cole, as we discussed before. I love the guy, and what's up, Cole? But when he actually hit me up after the event when he found out, and he gave me shit. He's like, hey, asshole. It's supposed to be me that gets eaten by the bear. It's like, I'm the bear guide. Like, this is supposed to happen to me first, not you. So he gave me plenty of shit. But yeah, I know it's a very real thing. And the bear spray, if that's all you got, awesome. That's all you got. But definitely strength in numbers and
do you guys always stick together when you're in a place like Afognak?
No, and that was the part of the thing. But again, we were just focused on the elk then. Yeah. Not seeing anything else. The last thing any of us were expecting to run into was bear. Yeah. In those conditions. And
well, let's get into it.
Yeah.
So you guys had hunted a couple days, not seen hide nor hair.
Yeah, nothing. I think it was, and I take that back, I think it was the end of the second day, just as the sun was going down, where another guy that was with me, he spotted him. Finally, we're just trying to find different spots, like going through the spruce and finding open areas where we can kind of glass and see whatever we can see. And finally, high up on a ridge line, saw like 2 to 4 of them. I think, well, now 3, 4, like 4 elk high up on the ridgeline. Like, thank God. Okay, it's like we finally saw something. We know that they're there. Awesome. Immediately, like, all right, let's break down. Let's head back. Let's see where we can get the boats in. Like, with the surf and the winds the way they were, we want to make sure and like kind of make this plan of attack to get up to where they were the following morning. So we scoped it out, looked on some maps, just kind of glassed the area, and found this ridge line that we decided to take, and made our plan, and set it up following morning, got up really early before the sun and started hiking up, and certainly no easy going there. Took us a little while, but we made it up, and I think the line was still the best that we could have taken, and finally got up on the ridge line and hadn't seen anything, and conditions were still terrible. I think the weather predicted that it was supposed to be better. Of course, it was not. It was the opposite. It was actually more rainy, and didn't see him at first, and we had our suspicions because if people aren't aware, elk are very nomadic. They're not like deer where it's like, oh, sun goes down, like they're gonna graze a little bit, maybe bed down, like they'll probably be there and then move. No, elk can move like really great distances, like all through the night. And so of course we get out there and we're like, shit, gosh damn it, like where are they? And I started walking the ridgelines more and finally saw them, but it wasn't for the whole herd. And I hadn't seen a full herd of elk yet. In Kodiak anyway. Like I'd heard that, like, okay, there's always big herds of them, but we've always just seen like onesie twosies, and that's what we've hunted. And honestly, that's kind of better, just because you don't have so many eyes on you. Yeah, but finding the herd was like really, really nice. We were like, oh, we were just really, really excited finally finding them. So we're at the top of the ridgeline. They're at the bottom of the valley, and then it was kind of like, great, but now what do we do? And of course, we're just sitting there for a while and looking around. And
how far below you are they at this point?
I don't know what elevation we were at. We were pretty high. We were definitely above alpine, so I don't think we were at top elevation 1,300 feet or so, and then they were almost probably at sea level. Yeah, not very much higher. So there was very little cover getting down to them. A lot of alder, but not really like good spruce where you're going to get a shot anyway. So that was really the talk, is like, okay, how do we get down to these elk within range, get a shot, and then of course getting them out afterwards. And we figured we'd probably just take the valley out. But we decided, like, hey, well, there's 5 of us, let's split up. 3 go on one side of the herd and 2 stay on the other side of the herd. And we're basically just kind of try to make our way down and pray that they don't just find out we're there and then jet on the other side of the valley. Yeah. Hopefully they'll just kind of like either move one way or the other, because they weren't really moving too much. They seemed a little weird, a little off. We couldn't really tell what it was. And so we just like, okay, let's just split them, get down, and then whoever can take a shot will hear the shot, and like, cool, that's it. And then go to the other guys. And so we started moving, and myself and 2 other guys, we were the 3-man group, and started moving to one side of them, making our way across the ridgeline, then eventually down. And then, of course, we run into 3 other hunters. And
as it seems.
Oh my God. Couldn't believe it. We were just in awe. One, we'd already been there 2 days. Like, it was definitely like a pissed off moment. And they were below us. They never saw us. Far down below us, they were just glassing. And it was like, okay, rightfully so. However they got there, they got there. They were clear. They're in front of us. But it pissed us off because no tact whatsoever, right out in the open, moving straight towards the elk. And I'm like, okay, no wonder the elk are kind of like weird. Their eyes are up on the hills. They're like, well, there we go. It's like these, whatever.
Gentlemen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, gentlemen. I don't know who they were, but
Gentlemen,
it was like
hunters.
Yeah. Definitely annoying.
They're probably they want it to be fair chase.
Yeah, right. And, they were doing their thing and whatever. Maybe it worked out for them. I don't know. But obviously it ticked us off and like, okay, well, rightfully so. These guys are lower. We're going to give them sort of like the right of way. But like, we're not going to end here. We're like, all right, the 3 of us decided like, hey, let's book it back to the other side, kind of climb back up the ridgeline, make our way over, trying to spook the elk, and then get back with the other 2 guys.
Sure.
I'm like, okay, from there, we're just going to try to make our way down and get on the other side. So it's like, hey, if we get down low enough, we take a shot first, then so be it. Or if they take a shot, hopefully they'll kind of like push them, drive them towards us. So we'll kind of be ready. So I kind of took the lead, running, sprinting my ass off to link up with the other 2 guys. And the 2 that were with me were behind me, and we're just kind of moving across the ridgeline. I start making my way across and then eventually down. And I'm just kind of starting to break down out of alpine into the alder, the thick brush there. And I saw the hat sticking out of the alder of one of the other guys. So that was kind of my eye. And one of the guys that was with me, he got my attention. He's like, we want to take another line down. And we were separated, a good distance at this point. So I started making my way up towards him. And this is a really, really steep hill. And matter of fact, there was a cliff kind of separating us. Not huge or anything, but it was probably, 30, 40 feet wide, maybe like 15, 20 feet tall. Just enough that it's like he's not going to like jump down over it. It's like he's going to be above it with the other guy, and I'm below it, and we're kind of converging at that cliff and then paralleling at that point. So I'm kind of just coming up towards the cliff, kind of coming back up the hill at this point, and I step over this rock, kind of climb over it, like terrain feature, so to speak. And as soon as I do, I stand up and turn, and right down the alder 5 yards away, there she is. And immediately, like, just stop, froze. And
what's she doing? Is she looking at you? Is she looking away?
No. So that was it. It's like when I saw her, it was just a big ball of fur.
Yeah.
Like no features, no anything. All I just see is this big thing of fur. And, I just stopped and I couldn't really make out anything. And of course, everything immediately like slows down. And the way I have related the story with other people that I've told is kind of like the state of flow.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, okay, everything immediately went in slow motion. I got like no concept of time from this point on. Like everything slowed down. I'm making all the decisions in my head. And, so for me, I'm just, the gears are turning, and the first instinct I didn't know, I just big thing of fur. Okay. What is it? My mind's like, okay, processing. Cause I'm not even thinking about bear. I'm thinking about elk. And I'm like, okay, that's not the right color. And the color was actually like grayer. It wasn't really brown, like even a brown bear or an elk. And I'm like, okay, processing. But of course, no time whatsoever. I just stand up there. And as soon as I did, I took a step back, and because it kind of dawned on me finally, okay, this whatever it is not good. I know better, and took one step back. And whether it was the point where she finally heard me or finally smelt me and caught wind of me, she just turned her head and charged like immediately. Yeah. And as soon as I took the step back, I knew that was going to be the case anyway. Like I said, with my experiences with bears, like everything's good, fine, and dandy because you don't surprise them. Like you never surprise a bear. Like they know you're there well before you do.
Yeah.
Otherwise, like you're hunting it from like hundreds of yards away. You're glassing them. But like if you're that close, like no way, they know you're there. And so as soon as I did, I'm like, there was no doubt in my mind. I'm like, this is going to happen. Like there's no getting out of this.
You don't feel like she was processed anything. She smelled or heard.
It was instinct.
Like it was instinctual. Mm-hmm. Like there's danger.
Yep.
something's not right. I've got to. I have to address this issue.
There was no and being 5 yards away. I don't have to exaggerate the distance. Wherever I know 5 yards very well, and for people unaware, that talk about running away from bears and stuff, bears run at 30 plus miles an hour. Yeah. Like that's a leap. Away that the bears can they're insanely,
that's like somebody
fast.
You being 5 yards from the hood of a car and somebody flooring it.
Yeah, no,
you thinking you're going to jump out of the way.
They could cover let's say 5 yards in a millisecond, really. Well, at top speed. So it took a little bit longer than that, but in real time, like that's a second, really.
Yeah. And how long? I mean, when you're processing, you see the bear, you're processing it. It's moments until it charges you. I mean,
no, it was almost instantaneous. Like I said, I stood up and I did take a step back because once it immediately clicked, which is probably a millisecond. She probably, as soon as I stood up, probably smelt me or whatever, and it took her probably a millisecond too, just to turn. So I don't really know the time wise there, but I just knew there was no. She wasn't standing up. There was no like snort. There was no like. Kind of bluffing, beefing up. It was just like it startled her, scared her. She's like, what is this that just really snuck up behind me? Because just by her head turn, she was facing downhill. And my suspicion as well, these other guys, she's probably hunting the same elk we were.
Oh, for sure.
Like wanted, something to do with it, whether she was going to hunt them or like, capitalize on something else. She was there for a reason, like right near the elk, and she was just hunkered down in the alder, either making her way through or just like waiting.
Yeah.
And so when I came up behind her, it was sheer surprise. So, of course, instinctively, I immediately yelled out bear and instinctively was pulling my rifle up. I ripped the scope cover off and started presenting, my rifle. And I knew, I'm like, this isn't going to happen. And this is the first time out, and I've shot it a few times now, but I got a new rifle. It was 6.5 Creedmoor. Yeah. And I was really excited about it because it was insanely light. My goal is I really like guns, and I huge proponent of I just love shooting in general. But I built this specifically to be extremely light, like the lightest rifle I have. The whole thing with 5 rounds in it is less than 6 pounds. Yeah. So it's like a toothpick, you're holding it. So it's so great, great, going to be great for goats and future elk hunts and everything else. But of course, it's not going to take down a bear. Never in a million years ever take that as a backup. For people that don't know, it's this little teeny tiny round. Like it's goes shoot fast and straight, and it's going to take a lot of shot placement, but it doesn't have a lot of power, and especially for a bear. And I knew I'm like, okay, if I get this hip shot, if anything off, it's just going to piss her off. It's not going to take her down. And then I'm going to take 500 pounds to the face and the body, and I'll end up like one of those stories. And all of this is just turning in my mind, and I knew it, started raising it, threw it down, and then I just Superman down the hill. And of course, when I say that, it's like, it's a little bit of a drop, but I'm not really going anywhere. Yeah. And just kind of jumped in the alders and covered up my head and neck as best I could. And again, no concept of time, but it felt like I didn't even hit the ground, and she was already on me. She had a bite in the back of my leg, high up on my right leg, just below my ass. And she picked me up just by that and just threw me over that same like rock, like kind of terrain feature that I was kind of falling down. I fall on my head. She's just kind of like just throwing me around like a rag doll. She picks me up, and as I'm falling, she's trying to re-bite me, and she bites me in the nuts, and I'm kind of like head down, face down. I just feel her top 2 canines like going into the taint, and I'm like, that's not good. Like I fall, and she's just biting me in the leg, like traveling on the leg, bites me real hard, almost like kind of behind the knee at this point. And fortunately, like the guys were Johnny on the spot. Of course, this is just like seconds this is happening. Yeah. And the guy,
you remember screaming or yelling?
I did on the first one, but it's funny, training dogs, I think it had a lot to do with it. And when you train dogs like for bite work and stuff, it drives them. Just like when they say with animals, like the whole playing dead thing, it actually has a lot of truth behind it, because it's just kind of like this instinctual prey that when you do bite, or when they bite, like, and you scream, it just drives them even more to bite harder. So the first one I yelled out, and I'm like, I'm like, that was obviously making things way worse. And I'm like, okay, this is it. It's like, this is going to suck. Like, this is going to be really, really bad. And even when I dove, I'm like, I knew that. Like, there's no protecting myself. It's fully relying on everybody else around me to take over at this point. I'm like, okay, here's trusting the boys. Like, I know they know their shit. Like, this is it.
You covering your head at this point?
Like I'm just I never let go. I was like just head, or hands behind the head and neck. And, I kind of got a gash in my eye from just getting thrown into some alder or something at some point. But I'm like, I'm not letting go. Like, this is all I got, like, to hold on to. And right when she was stolen the leg, she, the guy above me took a shot, and, as he tells it too, obviously we all collected our own stories after the event. And he didn't hear what I said. None of them did. Like, they were all, like, somewhat close by, but they couldn't make out what I said. Like I was yelling bear, but just said it once, and then I was mauled, and they just heard the scream, and then they heard all the growling, and then they immediately knew. So all I did is get up over the cliff, and he peered down, and he had to kind of make a judgment call at that point because couldn't see me. Like the bear's just like engulfed on me, like couldn't see me at all. Made a judgment call and put one high in her back. And wherever that bullet ended up, I don't know, but fortunately it didn't end up me. And I would have done the same thing. Like I'm thankful he did it and didn't kill her. It just kind of pissed her off, and out of fear and anger, she bit me again, like kind of clawing at my back at this point. And the backpack definitely.
Yeah, you were wearing a Stone Glacier.
Stone Glacier, yeah.
Shout out to
Stone Glacier.
Jesposito.
Yep.
Appreciate you, buddy.
I even told calls like, "Hey man, like I know those guys, like let them know." I was like, definitely saved my ass. And I got
literally
a few claw marks on my back, but no, it definitely took some heavies and saved me. But she, kind of got to the side and then sunk one in my arm pretty good. And then the second shot went out. She just reloaded really quick, put another one in her, had a little bit better shot then, and that one dropped her. It kind of at that point hurt her enough. I heard a very distinct moan, kind of that kill shot type deal, and she fell kind of on top of me, but a little to the side too, not really engulfing me. And ironically, I was a little more nervous at that point, even not being bit, because she was right there. I was more nervous about the back of my head and neck because I couldn't see her at all. I'm kind of on my left side, with my hands behind my head and neck and looking up the hill at the two other guys that were with me when we split up. And all I could just feel was just her, and like I could hear the breath, like I could feel the fur. I'm like, oh god, I'm like, just don't bite me. Like that's all I kept thinking. I was like, all right, I'm hoping that bite doesn't come like on my head or something. And fortunately, she started kind of crawling away. She was obviously really hurting at that point, and barely kind of stumbling, crawling away. Couldn't see her. I was just still faced uphill. But the other guy that was with me and the other one when we split up, he ran down the hill. And he had a Glock 20 on him with 10 mil. And he just kind of got to me, pulled out the Glock, ran by me, and just dumped a mag. Just dumped a mag in there and finished her off, make sure she wasn't going to come after us anymore. And immediately at that point is when I started taking the backpack off, unzipping clothing, like trying to get things. Couldn't move my leg at all at this point. It was just, I knew that was the worst of it. And little side note on this one, unfortunately, I was completely unaware, but what I found out afterwards is when they took that first shot is, put one in her back, they saw a cub run out of the alder. Yeah. So of course, like I've told everybody, it's like, no, having the experience that I do with bears, which is pales in comparison to some people, of course, but they're not aggressive, they're not nasty. It's like I've been around sows and cubs before, and you just keep your distance, but with the conditions the way they were, with the heavy rains and the winds, it's like I come up on her and definitely surprised her. Yeah, she was probably hunting the elk territorial, and she had a cub. It's like there's no escaping this.
Yeah, I mean that's a perfect storm, for lack of a better term, and her heightened protective instincts there.
Oh, for sure.
Any surprise? She knows the cub, and it sounds like the cub was below her, probably.
Yeah.
So you were, it was you, her, and the cub.
Yeah, I never saw the cub at all. It was completely out of my sight and out of my mind. But
generally, when folks think about bear attacks, they're thinking about this situation: sow, cub.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely the worst. Mama bear and her cubs. Like that's what you don't want to mess with, and it's like that's the most precarious when you're getting around that type of situation. It's like, okay, this isn't just a bear like with some fish, and it's like you got to be more cautious and definitely make it aware that you don't want anything to do with them.
How long do you think the attack lasted?
No idea. Like only seconds. Like I'd say probably still under a minute. For sure, the whole ordeal was probably still only like a minute, and that's
How long did it feel for you?
That's hard to say too. It's a totally different world.
Yeah.
Been in plenty of kind of flow type states in my life where I've been under a lot of stress, and I don't know. People always ask me too, is like, did you pass out? I'm like, no, I didn't pass out. And I think the adrenaline took over in a lot of ways that I wasn't in a lot of pain initially either. A lot of it was just like a really, really heightened sense of what was going on.
Yeah.
It wasn't the sense where it was like, okay, I didn't know what was going to, what I was doing or anything. I just knew that my best situation for survival is just being extremely keen on everything going on. And like, even as the bites are happening, I'm kind of thinking to myself, like, okay, I know what those wounds could be, like the worst case scenario, like what it is. Like, okay, that's what I'm going to have to do afterwards to treat this.
Yeah, it sounds like you're thinking practically.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking, I'm like, oh, this is it. This is the end.
Yeah,
like,
you weren't thinking about your friends, your family. Like, no,
it really wasn't. I was just thinking like the situation as it is, just really, really in the moment. And as everything was going on. So naturally, again, as soon as the other guy that had the pistol like ran by me, that's initially it was my first thought. I was like, okay, the battle's over. It's won. It's done. It's taken care of. Now it's like, okay, we gotta treat this. Everything that's going on with me. And I knew the other guys had the same process. Like they're figuring everything out. And
did you during the attack,
mm-hmm.
you remember any distinctive sounds or smells or things that ping your memory back to that?
I certainly remember the growling and everything the bear was making. That's unquestionable. Fortunately, there was no like gnarly bone breaks or anything that I had to endure or hear or crunching or anything like that. It was just her, and I remember kind of the snorts and the breathing and the smells. No, I know that sounds kind of funny because I know smells are some of the biggest. It's the number one sense that recalls memory. And no, I don't really have a lot of smells, probably because there wasn't a whole lot besides moisture in the air, for me to smell.
Yeah.
Given the conditions and the winds, and probably the same reason why she didn't smell me either.
Yeah.
And that's all I can think of. But yeah, I hadn't really thought about the smells too much. But
just the impact of her teeth and claws.
Certainly felt it and knew, but it was definitely kind of surreal. And it's weird because whenever I think back upon it too, is I have kind of different visions of the same thing, not necessarily like PTSD or anything, but I definitely think back on it, and I have different points of view of being in first person and also in third person, and just like experience the same thing. So it's kind of unique, but quite the experience there. The treatment portion in itself was pretty funny too. One of the so the other two, after everything happening, they finished off the bear.
Let's
sorry.
Return to the timeline.
I definitely had to get to it because it is kind of funny. And I got a really good bunch of group of guys with me, and one of them has some pretty good medical experience that he's had in his past. And he came over, and everybody's kind of getting their ducks in a row, so to speak, and delegating stuff out, and guys are reloading because we're also thinking, hey, the cub or multiple cubs could still be around. I was like, doesn't mean they can't come back. Like, a cub can mess you up just as well as mama bear could, especially one that might be ticked off or protective of mama bear. So the guys were very weary of that as well, but fortunately never saw the cub. And they immediately just start breaking out the sat phone, DeLorme inReaches, and getting on those. And DeLorme inReach, they activated the SOS beacon that was on it, and guys were getting on the sat phone, making phone calls. So as this was happening, as I said, I'm taking off my clothing as best I could, just like unzipping stuff and trying to get stuff out. And I had my aid kit, and I'm telling them where that is, and they were using their own aid kits as well. And the guy that was working on me, he's starts to get his shears out, and he's cutting all the clothing off on me and trying to get at the wounds. And immediately when he came up to me, I told him, like, hey, I need a tourniquet on my right leg. Just practice that we've done before, because I knew that the leg took the worst, and I was nervous about any type of like heavy artery damage that could be. And certainly where the wounds were, fortunately that wasn't the case, but it still could have been under the circumstances, especially couldn't move my leg. So
was there a lot of blood? I mean,
there was significant, but really there wasn't.
Yeah.
Certainly not enough to put me into shock or anything. Just, a fair bit of blood just from,
so like your buddies could tell that there's trauma, but there wasn't.
But of course I'm like wearing, one set of pants and then rain pants and then gaiters and then boots. So everything's kind of covering everything up. So you can't really see besides just a bunch of puncture wounds everywhere, like holes in the clothing. So once he starts cutting everything off, he's kind of sees them, rolls me over, and he's like, okay, we can take the tourniquet off because like it was good. We're just going to pack this. The blood's not that bad. And I was like, the only thing going through my head is because I've had some training with tourniquets and stuff before. I'm like, okay, we got to go real slow because I do not want to lose my leg because it's happened before where guys have taken tourniquets off too fast and that rush of blood back into the appendage that's how you lose one. So a little nervous on that point, but we're going through and he's looking at the wounds like, okay, they're not that bad. And I'm trying to point out other wounds, but I knew that the leg was the worst. But as soon as you kind of get through it, I'm like, hey, I need you to look at my taint. I'm like, I know, because I remember that, and I was like, okay.
I don't want to laugh right now.
No. I was laughing. I was just saying, I'm telling you, like, I'll have to show you pictures afterwards. But I was going through the moment of it, and I'm like, okay, no homo here, but I really need you to check my taint. And he's like, okay. He's like, undoes it, pulls up my underwear, but it's kind of underneath, and he looks, and he's like, no, you're good, bud. And I'm like, okay, but I knew something was wrong. I'm like, it doesn't feel right. And he, kind of goes back, through cutting off other pieces of clothing. And I'm like, no, man, like something's not right. I need you to really check. So he cuts off the pants, like to my underwear at least this point, and like lift up the underwear. And even before that, you could see the underwear was just a hole in it with just blood everywhere. And I'm like, damn it. So he lifts it up and like, yep. I'm like just looking down, like just as, looking underneath my underwear. I'm like, yep, there it is. There's my testicle hanging out. I'm like, great. And, he sees it too. He's like, okay. And, I just reached down. I'm like, got to put that back in, pretend that like that never happened.
Dude.
And so then, of course, that's all that was on my mind. I'm like, gosh, damn it. I'm like, you got to be shitting me. And I'm also like still aware. I'm like, okay, I know my arm and my back is kind of messed up. I'm like, okay, here's one here. And I tell him, and he cuts it off. He's like, yep, okay, I see it. And, they're packing those wounds as well. But it was still on my mind. I'm like, hey, does anybody have any, like, a sock or something I can shove down there? Like, I don't want it to pop out again. Because that's all I'm thinking.
Was it still attached, though, huh?
Oh, it was. Like little nunchucks, hanging around.
Oh, baby.
Still down there. Still good. But
so you felt like it's attached.
Yeah, it's like, it's got to be still good,
functional,
right? And
there's just been the bubble has burst.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh man, I know guys have like vasectomies and stuff, but it doesn't come out. They just like reached in there and make a little snip, and it's good. Cut the little whatever it is down there, vas deferens or whatever it is, and I'm like, oh man, you got to be kidding me. And so of course it was on my mind. I'm like nervous about it coming back out, and so I'm like, I was asking him, he's gonna get like a sock or something. I just didn't want it to pop out like when I'm getting moved around and stuff. I'm like, gosh, damn it,
bandana or
exactly, something. And it's like, no, it's in the underwear, like it's good, like not gonna focus on it, but of course I'm focused on it. And the jokes just start coming out immediately. Like, guys are like, don't worry about it, man. You only need one. Like, you still have kids. Like, really, like, lighthearted guys. And I'm just laughing
Lance
at the
Armstrong
same time.
has one.
Honestly, I was in really good spirits to the whole thing. Like, knew I wasn't going to die. Knew nothing bad was going to happen. I'm laughing, too. And we're cracking jokes. And immediately, barely made it out. As many bear jokes as you can make immediately, and it just started.
The hairy situation.
Situation.
I could go all day.
And it was great, but I know they found some like little steri strip type things and put that on there. And of course, if you have any type of like organs rip out, you're never supposed to put them back in. So that was also kind of a thing. I'm like, no, that's okay. I'll put them back in. Like, I don't want that thing just hanging around willy nilly.
I'm putting that back in.
Yeah, it's going in.
Against medical advice. I'm putting it back in. There's no, that just.
Yeah. I was like, I never want anybody to experience that because that's not a fun feeling just seeing it like hanging out.
As a podcast host, speechless right now. Continue. Yeah. I have nothing to add to the conversation. There's nothing I can say. Continue your story. So
it's at this point, I'm kind of patched up, and the guys are getting out their, puff jackets, insulating jackets, and trying to cover me back up because I'm essentially kind of naked on one half of my body. And given the conditions, it was pretty brutal. And I got to say, with the whole experience, that was certainly the worst part, was just enduring the cold.
Yeah.
And I'm certainly no stranger to cold. living up there, being from Maine before that, and doing a lot of type of outdoor training and having experiences. I know the cold, but that one I was just jackhammering. It was hard going, waiting on the Coast Guard, which we had gotten in contact with via the sat phone.
So how quickly to the wounds are dressed as well as they could, the testicles back in its place, everything is you guys feel like stable at this point. Mm-hmm. How quickly did that happen until you were making those calls and expecting the rescue?
So we were on the bird. We had no idea what to expect with them as time-wise and how soon they would get there. Getting spun up, it's not a long flight. Like it's only like, I want to say 15, 20 minutes for them to fly from the base to Afognak.
As we talked about before, it's a scary thing just because of the weather. You don't know. No, it can change so quickly.
Exactly. And the cloud cover had kind of lifted. It wasn't as low as it had been earlier in the day, so that was certainly a blessing. But it still wasn't great conditions by any means either. And, of course, they still had to find us. But we were walking them on. Guys were Johnny on the spot with grid coordinates, passing them like lat and long, whatever they needed it in. And got them the coordinates and walked them on there. But I did want to touch out on one piece because you mentioned it earlier, and that was a learning point for us, is the DeLorme inReach.
Yeah. So
the inReach SOS button, we activated it.
Yeah, so if nobody is aware, like the DeLorme inReach is a GPS / GPS communicator that you can text on. I use it to text my wife, so I stay in good graces when I'm off.
Off the grid. Yeah,
and on the side of it, there's a SOS button. You can peel back this plastic, rubber covering and push this SOS button that's supposed to send a signal out, a beacon saying something happened bad. Come get me.
Exactly, that's it. And we use it for the primary reason, just like you said. Texting is one of the biggest things when we're off the grid. We can't text any other means, and we're not going to waste minutes and time on that sat phone. So it's been great for that. However, we never really knew what the SOS button was going to do.
I've carried one of those around for years.
Somebody come save me, save our souls. That's literally what it is. And we activated it. Fortunately, we had the sat phone with us, but when we activated it, come to find out afterwards, the state troopers got it first. Talked to a state trooper when I was in the hospital, and he's like, they got the call first. But by the time they got the call, didn't really know what it was. They just knew it was some sort of emergency beacon, no idea of the situation. I think it gives them a GPS coordinate and just tells them something bad's happened. That's pretty much it. And probably the user name, I think, whatever his information is, because it wasn't my DeLorme, which is somebody else's. Mine was just still in my bag.
This guy in trouble, these coordinates.
Right, exactly. And so that went out, and by the time they had any inclination of what was going on, what it was, Coast Guard was already spun up on their way. So saw they were really quick to react, like they were, because we had them on the sat phone.
Yeah, I was going to say, without a sat phone,
then it would have been like, okay, they would have had to call the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard would have had no idea what was going on. They would have had to reach out on the DeLorme, and I don't know if that's via text how that would go down or what, but would have been a little bit different, maybe even longer. And so as this was going down, I'm just kind of sitting there waiting at this point. There's nothing else to do. The guys that weren't on the comms piece were just kind of cutting branches because we knew, getting a bird in, they're going to come lift me out. And so they're just kind of cutting down branches in the area, trying to clear, pave away. Couldn't really move. I think, given different circumstances, if I didn't have another bunch of guys around me and if I was solo, it would have been just a hellacious story. Like, who knows what or could have happened, but fortunately that was not the case. So I was just
the other two guys in your hunting party still don't know this is going on, or
they were with us. The other two that were separate, they heard all the commotion.
That's what I mean. So they came up.
Yeah, it was that guy, or one of the two, that actually he came up and he was the one treating my wounds.
Okay,
so he was the one with medical.
So you're all together.
Yeah, everybody's together. Everybody pitched in, and it was the other guy from the other party that he was on the sat phone, and he was doing that piece. So kind of everybody's, finding a job, doing something at this point. Like I said, really, really textbook. Couldn't have went down any better whatsoever. Everybody's doing, a job or looking for something to do. And, at that point in time, it was just sit and wait, and they're talking to him on the bird, and bird comes in, and hoist the guy down first, and he kind of comes and assesses me and asks me questions, and I'm completely coherent, answering them, good spirits, yada, 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 checking everything over. They come up with a plan of action to get the litter down and then put me on the litter and then and hoist me up. The whole process definitely took longer than I would have liked. I think it...
Did it ever...
I know the incident happened right around 1:10, I think is when the attack happened. And I didn't have a chance to check my watch and everything in the hospital. They took it all off. But it was like roughly, from what I heard, about 2.5 hours later that I was actually at the hospital. So, blessing going out to the Coast Guard still saved my ass. That definitely...
It's a long time.
If it was a fatal wound, there's no question. It's been a fatal wound. Well out of the golden hour, like 1 hour period, we're like, okay, my life might have been saved. So, still saved my ass. Wasn't too happy about their hoist camera that they have. So on their helicopter they have a hoist camera like going right down the cable, like where it's lifting me up, and immediately, like as soon as it went down, like they had that camera footage of hoisting me up, off the ground, and posted on Facebook, like social media. So love the Coast Guard, still saved my ass, but they immediately posted that. So.
For what reason?
I don't know. For their own reason, like, hey, saved a hiker, hunter, whatever, from a bear mauling.
Self promotion, like we're awesome.
And again, like I give it to them 100%. It's like, hey, I would absolutely give them, the save, the rescue, and good for them. But I was kind of like, man, to post it immediately, it made me and other guys more upset because I had other guys, that I know, and they were out in the field. And outside of work, and they found out through Facebook before they found out from guys, like phone calls, like, hey, guy just got mauled, whatever else, like through anything else. And fortunately, my folks didn't find out that way. I called them when I got to the hospital, but I'm kind of like, that's pretty messed up to do it, so soon. And I'm like, yeah, it didn't make me happy, and I do want to give them the rescue and everything else. But I was like, man, that's pretty unprofessional as far as
I would agree with that wholeheartedly. I mean, it's like marketing their ability.
Yeah, and again, I'm not against them doing that. Like, they do a lot of good things there, like. They are the biggest base, is in Kodiak for the Coast Guard, and rightfully so. They save a lot of people.
Yeah, no, like you're saying.
All
props for the life-saving efforts, but
come on,
streamline,
really, come on,
streamline that social process. That'd be nice.
O'Reilly Auto Parts are in the business of keeping your car on the road. O'Reilly Auto Parts offer friendly, helpful service and the parts knowledge you need for all your maintenance and repairs. If you're confused about what part you need, like what wipers are going to be the best, what replacement headlights are going to be the best, go into O'Reilly and talk to the people that work there, because they're great and they're super friendly, and they'll get you squared away where you walk out knowing you got the right thing. They've got thousands of parts and accessories in stock, either in-store or online, so you never have to worry if you're in a jam. Do you need your windshield wipers replaced? You need a brake light fixed? You need some quick service? They'll help you find the right part or point you to the nearest local repair shop for help. The professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts are your one-stop shop for all things auto do-it-yourself, and you can find what you need in-store or online. Stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts today or visit us at O'ReillyAuto.com/MeatEater. That's O'ReillyAuto.com/MeatEater. You ever get that feeling you're stuck inside staring at screens and a primal urge kicks in? You crave wide open spaces, fresh air, the chance to connect with the land. Well, maybe it's time to find your own piece of the wild, but searching for property can be a maze. That's where Land.com comes in. They got millions of listings across the country, from mountain ranches to hidden fishing holes. Their search tools are like a seasoned guide helping you narrow down what you want. Land.com isn't just about buying and selling. It's about finding a place to hunt, fish, explore, or simply sit by a campfire and listen to the crickets. So head over to Land.com today to turn one day into today, because trust me, there's nothing quite like the feeling of standing on your own piece of earth. There's nothing like snook hook sets at dawn or catching a tarpon in the moonlight. Find your next fishing trip made easy on fishingbooker.com and experience the magic of the Sunshine State or any other destination on your fishing bucket list. Book a blue water adventure in search of sailfish or go snapper fishing with the kids. With over 6,000 captains and trips to choose from, planning your next one just got a whole lot easier. Download the Fishing Booker app on the Google Play or App Store, or visit them online at fishingbooker.com to book your trip today.
Nice. Yeah. But yeah, was there moments in the waiting? Because you talk about like sounds and smells of the attack, right? Mm-hmm. But are there moments in the waiting to be rescued, in air quotes, I guess, where things started to settle in your mind as to what happened, or was it still a tactical, I got to get out of here, I need to stay alive, I need to get, where you obviously weren't given any duties. You had to, lay there, be warm, and be stable.
Survive.
Survive.
That was pretty much it.
So during that time, do you remember your mind drifting to any particular things other than...
No, I was pretty focused in the moment still.
Yeah.
No, I never... I don't know, I'm a very determined, focused kind of individual, and guys that know me know the same thing, that I definitely don't let anybody tell me how things are going to go or how I'm going to live my life or how things are going to turn out or odds or anything like that. It really kind of drives me and forces me to work even harder. So the only thoughts going through my mind is like, okay, cool. Well, I wonder how long this is going to take before I'm back to doing the same old things I'm going to be doing. Like nothing in my mind was like, oh, I'm Limp Bizkit now, besides like the jokes of like, I wonder if I can have kids, but I'm single, like I don't have a girlfriend, no wife, no kids from anybody else. Yeah. It's like
no pressure.
It's like, if I'm going to prove this, I'm going to prove it, however many years down the road, like if that's even going to happen. So, the only thing going through my mind is like, all right, I wonder how long it's going to take me out of the picture,
just
how
determination,
I'm just kind of like, okay, what's next? Like I survived, like
no sorry moments,
no, none whatsoever. And I was really, really proud, I guess, of the guys that were with me, and thankful too. It was like, hey, it's like kind of got me thinking, and I know we briefly touched on it earlier when we talked about like guns and like everybody having sidearms, and when certain guys like decided, like, okay, we're only going after the one elk, not everybody's going to get to shoot, and some guys decided like, okay, just leave the rifles behind, because we all knew when we made our plan that like we already had a base camp set up, that this hunt was going to be like, okay, we know where they are. This is going to be super light. Just bring the absolute minimum so we can carry the most amount of meat, like all in the goes that we can. And with the amount of guys, we figured 5 guys, we can definitely haul the whole thing out in one go.
Yeah.
Like everybody takes like a quarter, and then, whatever organ meats and like back straps and tenderloins and all that kind of stuff. And then the rack. But we're like, yeah, we can do this in one go. So everybody's lightening the load. And, definitely kind of eye-opening, especially even me. Like I said, I was really excited about having the 6.5 Creedmoor, but now that I think about it, I'm like, okay, well, I'm not so much of an asset if there is a bear in the area or if something like that were to happen. And all of us have talked in the past, what we would do if a bear charges, and a lot of us spend a lot of time at the range, a lot of time shooting, and very savvy, I would say. But all of us kind of know too, is like, especially in the situation just as mine, no time to take a shot. Like if you have a pistol or anything, like maybe you get a couple shots off, you never know. But we always say like that pistol or that rifle that you have on you, it's not for you, it's for the other guy.
Yeah.
Like you're always carrying it. So if somebody else is the one that gets attacked, you're Johnny on the spot to go and take that thing down immediately. So yes, you're there to defend yourself, but the probability is less that you're going to be able to do that. It's in defense of, somebody else. So, huge proponent of that and thinking that way, but it also got me thinking like, okay, well, yeah, maybe I shouldn't be carrying that really, really light rifle because of, said cases. And so I think that's kind of changed some of our standards, for what we're going to do later on. And for me, I think one of the big lessons after, as I said, with the cold, we're like, okay, as much as we spend time in survival and we're a tough bunch of guys and very versed in the area, is like, from now on, carrying those little space blankets.
Yeah, man.
Throw it in the first aid kit, like along with everything else, and like, yeah, okay, a little bit, like another extra ounce or something. And ounces do equal pounds, but it's like that would have been a night and day difference for kind of keeping me from just jackhammering.
Yeah, and I think that's things like this, like this isn't for me. Hearing this story from you is not entertaining. Of course, I'm barely struggle even to know what to say to you hearing that. But I think for folks listening, that type of insight is what's valuable here, is to hear your story and to everybody's got holes in their game. And in this case, those holes can lead to death or life.
For sure.
And in your case, had you not had tourniquets, had you not had a sat phone, had you not had 4 other buddies with you,
oh yeah,
things could went a lot different.
Totally different. Yeah, the lessons are always, learned in blood. At least all the hard ones. People are stubborn, don't want to change. It's like until something serious happens, that's when it kind of starts to put things in perspective.
Yeah,
again.
and if you're out there listening to this and you're hunting in bear country, I mean, these are things that you need to, you need to think about. You need to think very hard about how you prepare and what holes are in your game, and if something should happen, what the contingencies are. Because this is
absolutely,
this is exactly what everyone fears.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, just when you asked me to talk about it, I've got no qualms telling the story. I love telling the story with other people. I've said it's just practice for the grandkids, some days. Really get to tell them
lucky
all
for you, this
about
will be
it,
a legend, right?
All about it. And but I did think about it. I'm like, okay, it is good perspective, and by no means any type of expert on the matter now, just because, I went through this experience. But I think it does kind of open some eyes and doors to what you can tell people, because so often it's like you just hear people talk, it's like, oh, what do you do in this type of experience, but really don't have any experiences. Their experiences ended with a bluff charge that they had once, and you use what you got. And yes, there's a lot of common sense that comes into as a factor for what you're going to do out there, but definitely being through the process, I know it won't always go down the same. It'll never go down exactly that way ever again, to somebody else, but it is kind of lessening, people that I work with and talk to and see now. It's like, okay, now I can kind of touch on those things and know what's going to work, and probably
like, hey, this isn't the smart thing to be doing. Solo hunting in bear country is a risk, man. It's a hard risk.
Oh, for sure. The story that always comes up, and I laugh about it all the time, is Leonardo DiCaprio and The Revenant. So everybody brings that one up all the time. So I've got a great little picture with a meme on it that says Leo can suck it as he's getting attacked by the bear. And I was aware of the Hugh Glass story well before the movie and before the event, and knew it well. And that guy is for sure a badass. And the movie didn't quite do it justice on how it really went down.
As it never seems to do.
No, and it doesn't. In the real story, he didn't kill it or anything. They finished off like with 20 plus dudes or whatever, just unloading on it with guns, and he got some knife strikes in. But you can see how beat up he got, and that's a lot of the things that were going through my mind. Is like, as badass as the story could have been, and probably everybody wants to hear me about me, like, stabbing this bear, pulling out my knife, and stabbing the bear and like fighting it off. I'm like, this is a 500-pound animal, 7-foot bear that's just born bred and knows how to just crush and kill and do everything else. And it's like, it'd be a great story, but that's not reality. That's the movies for you, and if I was by myself, sure, like that would have changed everything and what I would have had to do. And who knows if it would have left me alone, or if I would have had to fight it. And if I had to fight it, man, be hard to think about, like who. Yeah, this is certainly
in this situation. It's not man versus bear, because there's nothing.
No,
you're not facing off with this bear. And for point of fact, you guys killed this bear, and you were telling me afterwards, this is a 7.5 foot giant, giant bear.
Yeah.
And the weight, the impact of that animal is not something that you can fight back.
No,
on. You can't.
Not at all. Of course, I'm fascinated in the subject, was even before being around bears all the time, but you see the maulings and the stories, and most people don't survive the maulings when they do happen. If they're like actually mauled and not just like, shot. When it happens, they're just, if they got anything in the front of you, like people's just faces are never the same again. Like they're ripping out organs, everything else. And I knew that. And again, like I said, there's no bravado here. Like my bravado was thinking about, like, if I die, I'm no good to anybody. It's like, and then everybody else is going to be forced to deal with that. It's like, I know, it's like, I don't need to fight back here. I've got 4 other guys that are ready to like that'll be Johnny on the spot. So a lot of, like I said, a lot of it was just trust in the guys that were with me, that I'm like, okay, all I need to do here is last. Like, how am I going to last through this to be able to give those guys enough kind of awareness and know what's going on and be able to get to me in time to do this? Like, how can I, open this up the best I can? Of course, it's very limited in what I could do, but I, yelling out bear, hey, at least let somebody know, or like, not that they heard it, they just figured it out through everything else, all the other commotion that was going on. But and then protecting myself, because it's literally all that I could do. There's there's no like, oh, I'm gonna block this bear and do this. And I've got a great photo that somebody sent me, and it's I actually sent it to Cole too, and he's like, yes, I've got that one, I've seen that one, and it's bear jujitsu. And it's got all these different pictures of like doing these moves on bears,
blocking bears,
and it's like 1 through 8, and it's like bear naked choke, like all that's thrown in there. And then the very, very last one is like, realize that you messed up at, number 2 and you died. Yeah. It's like, you're not going to fight this thing. This isn't going to happen. Yeah. It's not going to happen.
How do you feel now as we sit here, some time has passed? Mm-hmm. I think I know the answer to this, but I ask it anyway. How do you feel about that bear? How do you feel about that sow? Like, she's dead, you're alive, and you guys got in a tussle.
Yeah.
How do you feel emotionally about what happened, like that bear and her death and the experience?
Sure. So, even before I get to that, I'll like tap on this too, because this probably kind of helps, I think, a little bit. But so as we found out after it was taken to Fish and Game and everything, which is by law actually, but the initial estimate was she was like 19 years old.
Yeah.
And later on, the guy asked me, he's like, thought maybe like 23, 24. They only lived to like 25. Yeah, so this is a very old, like, angry hag sow.
Well, you mentioned,
attacked me. So.
And you mentioned the grayish color.
Right.
Like,
and that's why I'd never seen a bear that old. Yeah. Like, every bear that I'd seen is usually the youngins, because they're the ones that are more ignorant, for lack of a better word, that's hanging around the town. Just like old bucks. But so knowing that, she probably didn't have a lot of time left anyway, and she's seen a lot and had a lot of cubs before that, and the cubs, from what the guy said, were older. They'll hopefully be fine. But going through my mind, I certainly don't. I don't agree with the people that get all butthurt and be like, "Oh, the poor bear," and like everything else. And I'm like, that kind of gets annoying. It was like, hi, just got mauled. I don't feel bad for the bear at all. What I do feel bad for is like, okay, yeah, the bear could have produced more bears and made it for better hunters. Because in all honesty, the opening season for bear was about to open up. Actually, it happened on October 26th, and I want to say it was like that day. Actually, bear season opened. It's right around that time. I can't quite remember off the top of my head, but it opens right up. So I was looking forward to actually going out bear hunting and doing the same thing. So she kind of took me away from that. But no, I definitely don't. I don't, feel bad about it or anything. Besides the fact that it's like, hey, it wasn't in the right time. Like, it didn't have my tag or anything to get a bear. It definitely was in defense, and wasn't the bear that you're really seeking. And a lot of people don't like hunting, but as I say, with as many bears are on there, it's like it's good control of the bear population, and it's a huge thing. That's what I know you talk about a lot, but with the real meaning of hunting, especially with an animal you're not gathering meat from. It was unfortunate because I know that for her it's just as much survival instinct as me. Just she's a more primal creature than I am, and there's no communicating. That is communicating, and to her she's just like, there's no getting out of it. So I know there was the perfect storm and definitely unfortunate circumstances, but no, I definitely don't feel bad about it. I'm still a living, breathing human being, and I'm still alive, and thank God I am.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, have you talked to your buddy that took the shots, and like, what's as a group, post-mortem, what's the feeling?
Yeah, and no, I mean, guys are all on the same page. Like, they're ecstatic about it. One, just I'm alive, and it was very surreal for everybody. And in the moment, more so going what through his mind was like, God, I hope he's alive. And the guy who shot the bear first, the rifle, he was more nervous when I stopped talking. As I said, I can't make any more noise. No more screaming out or anything in pain or agony. Like, got to keep my mouth shut. This is going to get worse. And when he took the shot, it was like right after that too. And he he was nervous. It's like he didn't know if I was still alive from the bear killing me or from him killing me from a shot. So that was running through his mind too, and of course it made him nervous. But I was fully aware, awake, and like talking and everything else afterwards, and I think that was kind of a relief to him and judgment call. And even afterwards, we've had our discussions, and I certainly owe him my life. And he said the same thing, that he knows I'd done the same thing and been there for him, and that's absolutely the case. But I know the consensus in the group was still the same thing, but so many guys were just kind of surreal, and some of the guys hadn't really been through experiences like that before, really stressful, and kind of for them even it was kind of like they weren't getting attacked, but it was very like real all of a sudden, and kind of like, holy shit, like this isn't fun and games anymore. This just turned really, really real.
Yes.
Really real.
Yeah, I think that's all hunters, all people that spend time in wild places, like these things happen. You fall, you get attacked. Like they happen infrequently, hopefully for most of us, but they're realities, and that's why people love to read books about animal attacks. They love to read survival stories, and I'm sure we'll love to listen to your story here because I would say you beat the odds. I would say the odds kind of screwed you when you walked up on a bear.
Yep.
But during and after the attack, you beat the odds. I mean, there's so many ways it could have turned out with your death, but it didn't.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, even now I'm supposed to make a full recovery, and as you can see, I'm walking around.
Yeah, you look fine to me.
Wounds are healing, and
yeah,
besides some minor things and a much tighter nutsack now. I
well, maybe that's a.
I know
that's a plus.
The surgeons immediately said, some guys pay for this, right? Like as they get older and things start sagging, they're like, some guys pay for this shit. It's like you're gonna be good to go. So
we'll clip that part out, and that'll be the advertisement for the. That'll be how we get people to listen to this one.
Perfect. Oh yeah. But
yeah,
perfect.
let's. I mean, we were when you came in, we were talking. You're saying I still have open wounds. It's 2 months later ish, a month and a half, 2 months later, and you still have open wounds. Your recovery is obviously still ongoing. I mean, there's probably been a lot of rehab, a lot of pain.
Sure.
Just briefly take everyone through what that feels like, because I feel like you have the adrenaline, you've got your determination to survive. And you always hear that about life-threatening situations, but then when you're in a hospital bed or, you're waking up every morning in pain, I mean, I feel like that's where the suffering, really kicks in, and where, where the next level of difficulties you have to overcome begins when you've got to get up out of the bed and, like you said, get back to your normal life.
Sure. Yeah, so by the time I got to the hospital, I was going to pretty much immediately go into the operating room. They were asking me a lot of questions. Really concerned with more of like food and water, because before operating, they got to make sure I'm pretty much like drained of all that kind of stuff. But sorry, and there's another one that I hit on the ride over. It just kind of cracked me up. But I talked about being cold before, and this just made me think of it again. But in the bird, the helicopter, they were trying to put IVs in me, like get some needles in me at first, and just couldn't do it. Just so cold, like weren't able to draw anything. Even when I got to the hospital, like couldn't draw anything. The lady was there, and she's like, "You're having a really tough time." Finally, eventually got one in my hand that she could get some blood flow. It was just so cold though, and I made it happen. But it was just kind of one of those things. And I get to the hospital, and they're just taking everything else off me. And I finally got to the point, I'm like, I need a warm blanket. I'm like, love you guys. Thanks for taking care of me. But I'm like, I'm at the point where I'm like, okay, I am freezing my nuts off here. And I seriously need a blanket or something. Like, cover me back up. I'm like, I'm really, really cold. And so finally, that definitely toned things down, made stuff better. And I was kind of more in a happy place then. But I was like, yeah, cold does a lot of things to people. And I kind of had one of those snappy crack moments where I'm just like, okay, I'm cold. And I'm like, stop taking clothes off me. I need more clothes on me. And
I feel like there's like the frustration level has got to be. Yeah, because you at that point, well, really, as the attack begins, you have no control really at that point.
No,
like, you're unable
my hands and I wasn't trying to be stubborn or anything. I'm like, okay, let people take care of me. I wasn't being like one of those guys. And it was good. And I did get into the room just kind of waiting, and finally made a phone call to my folks and let them know everything was good. A guy brought in a phone for me. And so things are good, let them know, and they were all concerned. But even after the operating room, and I kind of got through a lot of the medical testing and guys asking questions and fixing me up, I'm very much a proponent of just the kind of positive attitude and healing and just keeping the smile going. And whenever you're in those situations, it's all you can do. And I hate negativity. Like the last thing, I really, really hate pity. And I don't, for the same reason, like I don't take pity on really anybody else either. And I don't think people need that. I think I'm probably less empathetic than most people either. That's, probably something I should work on. But at the same time, like even for myself, like I don't want that. Like anybody who's going to like come in and be like, oh, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, no, like, fuck that.
Yeah.
It's like, if you're going to be like, have pity and be like a sob story with me, like, get the hell out. Like, I don't need it. I don't want it.
Like, I'm alive.
I got shit to do. So, and that was kind of my thought process, even in the days in the hospital. It's like, yeah, I certainly wasn't feeling good and they had me on a liquid diet, starting out. That sucked. Because especially I was already hungry, being in the field, like for the first few days anyway, as you well know, like you do a lot of that hiking and through that some tough terrain, you get hungry.
Yep.
And like, hadn't really drank anything, hadn't really eaten anything in quite some time. And I was definitely hungry, and like just drinking on bone broth and water for a time or two is not my cup of tea.
Yes.
And so that took some time. But one of my biggest driving motivators, given the circumstances of what I was going through, is I talked to you about this before, but I had this puppy. And I hadn't got it yet, but I had made plans to get this puppy that I finally, kind of caved in on. I was like, I saw a litter up north and I really wanted it. And bought it, made the arrangements. I'm like, okay, great. Like this puppy's going to get shipped on Monday. Well, this incident happened on Friday. And I'm like, okay, making sure everything's in a row. And again, things going through my mind was just thinking on this. I'm like, okay, I got to get this puppy. Like, I don't care if it's Friday and like what they're saying, like how long they want to keep me. I'm like, I have this puppy coming in. I have to be there. I don't want somebody else to do it. Like this is the first kind of contact, and like I want to be there for it. So it's definitely my driving motivator. But the other thing on that story is, again, kind of going back to the whole, self-pity thing. The lady who had the breed, the litter, who gave me the puppy, shipped me the puppy. As this all was happening, I told her what had happened, what was going on, that things were still going to be, all right. I still wanted the puppy. We'll come to find out her husband was just climbing a ladder. I don't know if I think he was working on a roof with his brother or something like that and fell. And, one of the biggest, cause of accidents in the U.S. always like falls and stuff. And sure enough, like he fell off a roof or fell off the ladder and hit his head, like internal hemorrhaging and like emergency ER, and didn't know if he's going to make it, like all this like terrible things. And I'm going through this. And I'm like, yeah, of course. I'm just thinking to myself, like, there's always somebody out there that's got it worse, that's like so much worse than you are. Like the last thing that you need is just like this. I'll be like, oh, like poor me. Like, why me? Like all this is like, no, just life happens. Shit happens. You play with a bull, you're going to get the horns, as my father. You do anything long enough and like something's going to happen along those lines. And again, like looking back is why I don't regret anything, wouldn't do anything different. It's just an experience. And fortunately, I'm still here. God's got a plan for me like that. I'm going to keep going and doing something because I'm still here kicking.
Yeah.
So
it sounds like it didn't really like, it just enhanced your perspective. It didn't like change your perspective.
No, it didn't at all. Like no negativity towards it whatsoever. The only downfall that I'm experiencing right now is not being able to get on the horse soon enough to go back out hunting because all the seasons are like ending. Yeah. Even when I get back, I have no time, and my plan is to go right back out and go skiing and ice climbing. Like as soon as after the holidays ends, that's been my next goal, because I did bring my puppy here with me, and I did get out of the hospital on Monday to go get him, despite them kind of wanting me, to stay a little longer. But it's been kind of a crawl, walk, run. Starting out, I didn't even leave the hospital bed for the first couple of days, really couldn't. And I don't know if it was the second or third day, I eventually just got up to like stand up. Definitely not fun amount of pain. The blood finally just rushed back into the leg. Again, the leg was certainly the worst part. And whoo, that was
a little pain.
Yeah, that was a little pain. And
you were telling me like no surgeries other than
just
nothing, like no major surgery,
right? Yeah, just seal me back up. And with animal wounds like that, we had talked on it, but for the everybody else listening, never have an animal wound trained dogs and had animal bites and stuff before, and when you go through that, you're trying to keep the wound open for risk of infection and for it to heal inside out. You don't want some, cave hole inside of you just like festering. So they put some stitches on some of the bigger wounds just to close them up a little bit because they were so big. And after I don't know, like a couple weeks or so, they cut them off and like let them go back to healing open. And that's kind of what I'm going through now. But there was 8 major punctures on my leg, 2 on my arm, some superficial like scratches, bite marks, whatever they were on my back. And then down lower on the leg, there were like not like full punctures, just kind of like still like superficial, but deep enough to like warrant some bandages. I think just the clothing alone, probably on the lower leg was like the combination of like one pair of like soft shell pants, some rain pants, gaiters, just and enough. Boots. Like just enough that it like she squeezed the hell out of it because I've still got nerve damage where I can't feel half of my foot and leg. Well, not really leg, but lower like heel and Achilles, calf, that kind of area. But did enough to like mess with the nerve a little bit, not like completely severed or anything, but. She did some damage. Didn't take much for that type of beast.
Well, I mean, like you said, that she still has a little bit to rip through. Like she can still rip and tear at the clothes without really ripping and tearing at you.
Yep.
And then I'm sure that Stone Glacier pack. It's kind of. I know those guys over there pretty well. They're all good folks and they make a nice pack. But like, I'm sure that impact saved you a lot too.
Big time. And again, that went through my mind a lot. And she was a little focused on the legs at first, I think, which I don't know, good or bad.
I think maybe that's because what was like you were moving, maybe kicking.
Well, it was just the first thing that came to her. And the same with my experiences with dogs and like protective. They're going to go for the first thing, whatever it is like closest out there to them. It's just convenience. That's what they're going to bite first. And for her, it was just, that was the leg that was there. Again, I dove kind of downhill. So she was coming behind me at this point rather than like a head on charge. And she just grabbed that first leg and she picked me up and just threw me. So constantly going for the closest thing there. And, but the thing with the backpack, it did kind of, get me thinking. And I know bears are very, very smart creatures and just very keen on everything. And I don't think eventually she obviously did, scratch me in the back and get to my arm and the Stone Glacier pack didn't really take much damage. And it got me thinking about it too. And I had to think that she probably knows that feeling. Like she knew when she put her paws on me and her teeth in me that like, she probably knew what flesh kind of like feels like, tastes like, all that kind of stuff that like she didn't want anything to do it. And that's all she was trying to do is just kind of brush that out of the side. Yeah. So again, it was like all linked together and nothing actually happened to the pack, which was awesome. But
she was
if I didn't have that there, I mean, fortunately, like just the flat back itself doesn't really have features to really, grab a hold of it. Who knows? Maybe she wouldn't have either. She could have gotten like side or something else. And that's gone through my mind, but I had to think, I'm like, you know what? Like she probably knows exactly what flesh and everything like feels like, tastes like, and that's what she was going for. She was just moving that shit right out of the way.
Yeah. So. Yeah. I mean, it's hard. You can't put your mind to what is going through a bear's mind in that situation. Can't. I mean, it's impossible.
No.
And it's it was instinctual for you, instinctual for her. Mm-hmm. Like the whole interaction seemed to be just this like man versus nature, and that's And you at this particular time you ended up bumping heads, and you came out on the better end. But
for sure,
it's such I always wonder about that. Like if that were ever to happen to me, how it would change me. Like. You're way tougher than I am. Like you seem like you have a way better perspective. You have a way better perspective on these types of things. But I've heard from, Giannis Patelis and even a little bit from Steve Rennell and Media Crew, they weren't even attacked. They were charged and all came away, fairly unscathed. That it did change a little bit about how they felt about going in the wilderness. Like they have kids, they have wives, like they feel like, everybody has loved ones, family, and friends that care about them. Like I think it did change them a little bit as far as how they think about it. Are they not going to go? No, they're going, just like you are. But I think it had to change something for you.
Well, for sure. I don't know. Everybody's got their own ways of going through life and living and doing their own thing, but life's all about experiences, and you always hear about people talking about being in the moment and all that. But I do agree with it, and one thing I always think about is like you're never the same person as you were yesterday.
Yeah.
I constantly like. A lot of people just don't have those really huge moments, eye-opening experiences that they think that they do, and like they're just those mundane tasks and everything. But like no matter what, like you're getting lessons learned and experiences every day. Like they're just not as big as some of the other ones. And mine was obviously very big, and you can take away from that. But ironically, I was getting some tattoos done, and I just had an Audible book that I was listening to, The Rise of Superman.
Yeah.
And it's all about like the state of flow. And I kind of talked about the flow before that, and I've read other books about it and looked into the topic, and extremely, extremely interesting for people that like look into the subject or not. But always seeking out those moments where like you learn the most, because to bump into flow like takes like some people have like serious like I don't know meditation that they want to do that takes like hours and hours and hours and hours. But then you hear about these very adventure-seeking individuals like doing extreme skydiving and free diving and all these other adventure-type sports. And that's where they find and seek flow, and big wave riders and mountain bikers and all those things. And I love all those things as well. And a lot of people think of them as adrenaline junkies, and it's definitely not the same whatsoever. I'm not going to say I didn't have an adrenaline during the incident, but I also know that the state of flow is definitely going there.
But yeah, it seems like that's probably my read on it, is that's impacted you as much as anything. Mm-hmm. And hearing you describe it is having that state of flow. I mean, you may achieve it while climbing, you may achieve it while surfing, but while there's some inherent danger there, there's some inherent joy there as well in what you're doing. But in this case, you achieve that state of flow just in a different mental environment where you knew there wasn't any good outcome of what was going to happen, and then when it was happening. So it seems to me like that, having that state of flow and knowing what that feels like and moments of extreme stress is informed you in a lot of ways. Like coming out
absolutely.
of it.
Like that's really where I find that you really learn the most about yourself and other things in life, is being in those moments where you just learn so much so quick. It's very, very eye-opening. That's why people always seek that. It's not for that. It's not the adrenaline rush, as like people say. Yeah, there's definitely adrenaline junkies, but that's where I find it's those individuals are much more short-lived than others that just eat that, because then they eventually end up just doing something stupid and not well thought out, versus other people that they're just kind of pushed in those moments. And there's nothing wrong with like seeking other ways, with whether it is like a 2.5 hour session of yoga or meditation or something, and done that before too. But being in that moment was extraordinarily eye-opening. And I don't know, I can come out positive from the experience because, one, everything went down textbook, nothing really all that bad happened. And whether you believe in like a higher power or whatever, whether it was God just telling me to, hey, take a chill pill, like slow down for a little bit, like take some time.
Watch out.
Yeah, exactly. Like whatever it is, like, I don't know, there's, things happen for a reason, as some people say. I don't know about that, but everything always works out.
Yeah,
in my
how
mind.
it's supposed to.
It's like maybe not the way that you planned or wanted to, and like it always happens very, very unexpectedly. But all in all, it's been a really, really good experience. And
was there ever any? I'm sure there was fear, but like describe the types of fear that you felt while you were there. I mean, there's fear for your life. There's fear for your friends. There's all types of.
So it's funny. I've had that conversation before where people talked about it, and this isn't like a form of bravado or like manlyism when I say this, but I don't really think there was fear, and I think that was just experience that I've had before and having a clear head, because I think fear is very, very irrational. It's something that's concocted in your heads, like sharks in the water that you can't see, like that kind of deal. And like people just have a fear of that, or fear of heights. And I'm sure there can be chemical imbalances with some people that like cause them to have irrational fears that, it takes a lot to get over. But when this was going down, I don't think it was fear as much as like a difference between fear and danger.
Yeah.
And I don't remember exactly what he said, but it was a while ago that I heard Uli Steck talking about something similar a while ago. And if people aren't familiar with Uli Steck, he did pass away, but he's a very well-known speed climber, very well-known for doing a lot of solo crazy stuff, and eventually that did make him pass. So you can think about him however you want, but he was talking about the differences between, danger and fear. And when you have fear, it's just in your head. Like, there's no reasoning for it. It doesn't help you out. It doesn't do anything. But understanding that when there's dangers is very, very real. And when that initially happened, of course, everything going through you is very instinctual, and you have things that you do, and the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system, and fight or flight and freeze, and like all these other different things going on. And I know those things obviously happen, but as far as what's going through my head, I don't think it was like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. It's like, again, what am I going to do? Like, how do I control this situation? What control do I have? Do I have any control? What are the things that I can control? And those were the things going through my mind, because I knew that fear and danger, but yeah, I think it was just a very, again, it's all a surreal experience, but just knowing that it's what you can and can't control, and being in that situation to be like, understanding is what it was. It wasn't necessarily like, oh my God, fear, like, I'll stop. What am I, like I'm dead kind of deal.
Yeah.
I don't know. It really
seems to me like you
mind.
just exerted some positivity into it, and like, it's not like you were like, things are great.
Yeah. No,
well, this is
it wasn't
awesome.
rainbows and sprinkles, that's for sure.
Yeah, but like exerted some positive force into what was happening. Like, not like, I can't believe I'm so stupid. Why did I hunt on Afognak? Why am I getting mauled right now?
Mm-hmm.
More of just, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing I can do? What's the next thing that I can express to my friends to help me get to the point I have to get to live and be fine? And I'm sure that had a lot to do with to where you are today. But I guess we can close it out by saying everything's fine. Everything's
good.
You look good.
Thanks, man.
I mean, everything looks fine to me.
Healing, getting better.
Everything downstairs going fine?
Yeah.
That's going to be...
As far as I know, it's good. Wounds are almost healed. I'm hoping on Tuesday they'll be like, okay, everything's close enough to the surface, take the bandages off and let them do their thing. Started physical therapy already and kind of got the range of motion back. No more canes or walkers or anything. I'm getting around and should make a full recovery, back to skiing and ice climbing and doing fun things.
Good.
Hunting next season.
Well, I'm going to look forward to those updates, but it's admirable the way that you approach this. Like I said, this is everyone's worst nightmare in a lot of ways. So I admire the way you approach it. I'm glad you're sitting here.
Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks. That's it. That's all. Another episode in the books of the Hunting Collective. What I'll say about this story and Brad is that I was amazed by it. I was interested in every facet of it. And I'm very thankful that he chose us, or was willing to tell that story on the air here with me, the Hunting Collective. I think it's one of the more useful stories and educational stories you can hear about how he survived, why he survived, and why it was the folks he chose to have with him that were key to his survival. So thank you to Brad. Glad you're alive, bro. And glad you're feeling good. So get back to it. Get back to ice climbing. Get back to skiing. Get back to hunting. Get back to life. Appreciate you. What else? On to the next thing. We've got a lot of stuff at the MeatEater.com store. So check that all out. Christmas is come and gone, I believe, but there's still lots of reasons to buy for yourself and your friends and family. So go there, check out hats, shirts, hoodies, Yeti tumblers, all the things with the Hunting Collective logo on them, or some kind of awesome pro nuance anti-bullshit. Got some other things going up. The Broadside Elk t-shirt, which was a quote from Ryan Callahan on the podcast. A lot of awesome stuff there, man. So go check it out. And while you're there, click subscribe on the Meat Eater newsletter. You need to just subscribe. We would like millions of people to get our information every week in their inbox. Hopefully you can be one of them. But that's all I've got for this time. Thank you for everything, for all of you. I appreciate you, and I'm happy this podcast is growing and everyone is enjoying our efforts, because we're trying our best. So write in, tell us what we're doing good or bad. We'd like to hear it all. And until next time, take her easy. Bye.
You ever get that feeling the walls closing in, the concrete jungle suffocating you? You crave some wide open spaces, the chance to connect with nature, maybe in a spot all your own. Well, head over to land.com. They've got ranches, forests, mountains, streams, you name it. Search by acreage. You can search by location. You can search by the kind of hunting and fishing you're dreaming of. Land.com. It is where the adventure begins.
As you know, the Meat Eater Live Tour is on April 23rd through May 5th. Chances are in a town near you. What you may not know is you can win tickets to each of these events just by going to a backcountry hunters and anglers pint night. There's going to be a pint night in each of these towns: San Diego, Salt Lake City, Tempe, Anaheim, Boise, Sacramento, Missoula, Portland, Tacoma, where you can compete in Meat Eater trivia and win not only tickets to the show, but a chance to be on stage with all of us. So get your butt to a pint night, and we'll see you on stage.